The following video contains references to alcoholism and depression. If you are triggered by either of these topics, view this video at your own risk. 3 whole years. 3 years ago, roughly, I started this journey in covering Transformers EarthSpark with my first review of the series with Season 1, Episode 1, Secret Legacy Part 1. I was just a guy who wanted to cover a new Transformers show coming out, and when the convention I was going to every October, every year for the past nearly 10 years was gonna show the first episode a month early, I thought it'd be cool to go there and talk about it, get a little scoop that no one else could, and I had a good time with it. I was excited to cover the show in full when it came out a month later in November, and what I didn't expect though was to find a show that I would absolutely fall in love with the world, the characters, the story. Such a unique take on the Transformers franchise that we've never seen before, arguably, in any series of the Transformers. We've got a Megatron that actually turned good, a brand new species of Transformers with all different kinds of personalities. We have new versions of legacy characters that are vastly different but also similar in very different parts. We have arguably the best human villains I think the franchise has ever had in the form of Mandroid and Croft back in Season 1. And we even have made franchise history with the very first non-binary Transformer in the form of Nightshade. Between all the highs, the lows, Transformers EarthSpark is a show that I think is incredible and unique, and if anything, even if you don't like EarthSpark, I think the show should be applauded for all the firsts that it did in this, and how it reinvented the Transformers franchise. And also, I just had such a good time making videos on EarthSpark for the past 3 years, covering each individual season, giving my thoughts on each of the characters, the world, and what really made it for me though was all of your guys' love for my videos and how I've met so many other EarthSpark fans through these videos. I've found so many new friends through it. I've had so much a broader reach throughout the Transformers community because of it, and I can't express enough how thankful I am for that opportunity, that all of you guys love my videos so much and have continued to over the past 3 years, even with where it seems like so much of the internet has hated EarthSpark, has considered it trash since Season 2, and that nothing good came of this series after Season 1. It really means a lot to me, that to everyone that stuck by me and has been able to see at least some good in this series. Even if you don't like EarthSpark, that's totally fine. If you believe that it truly did fall after Season 1, I'm not going to fault you for that. Seasons 2 through 4 definitely have had their problems compared to Season 1, but I still believe Seasons 2 through 4, with all their faults, are still worth celebrating, and I think are able, when you look at it from the right way, the way that I believe EarthSpark was meant to be viewed and understood, it still is a very spectacular show in my opinion. To me, it still is the best Transformers show of all time, even if statistically and technically it isn't. It is, and probably will be for a very long time, still my favorite Transformers series of all time. And I can't thank you guys enough for nearly 3 years of covering EarthSpark, covering almost 50 to 49 episodes of this series in all my video reviews. I have made 23 videos in Season 1. I made 8 videos in Season 2, 6 in Season 3, or 7 in Season 3, and now it all leads down to this, my final EarthSpark episode review. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about it, shall we? Hello everyone, and I'm Autobots Sonic the Telltale Gamer, bringing this everything Transformers, Telltale games, and more. Well, it's been a long road, but we're finally here at the end of it. Welcome to my review of the series finale of Transformers EarthSpark, the final episode, and that is Season 4, Episode 2, Legacy of Hope. It's been a long time coming these past 3 years covering EarthSpark, where several times, I'll be honest, over the past I thought that EarthSpark was going to end a lot sooner. I genuinely thought Season 3 was going to be the last time I talked about EarthSpark. When I finished recording my video on Judgment Day, I genuinely thought to myself, that's probably the last I'm going to hear about EarthSpark. I don't think it's going to get a Season 4. I think the rest of the show was canceled. But hey, I had a good time talking about it, and I still got plenty more EarthSpark plans, like in terms of other stuff. But I'm going to wait and see. And so the months went by, months turned into almost a year, and I still thought to myself, okay, if we don't hear anything about EarthSpark by, I want to say, March of 2026, I'm going to assume EarthSpark's canceled. But then when all the rumors came out about, with Dale Malinowski tweeting that post on Instagram that he had finished his work on EarthSpark, that made me hopeful that we were going to be seeing Season 4 at some point. And I'm glad that paid off here, where we are finally here with the last 2 episodes of EarthSpark. And here I am with the very last episode, reviewing it all to you, to hopefully show you what, in my opinion, a really good finale this is to the series. Is it a perfect finale? No, absolutely not. It has, definitely leaves a lot of open-ended, a lot of stuff unanswered. We don't get a definite ending to the entire series. We don't get a happy little bow on everything. But in my opinion, it definitely thematically ends the series, in my opinion, really well, even with all the faults it has. And with that, let's not waste any more time and talk about it. This is my review of Transformers EarthSpark Season 4, Episode 2, Legacy of Hope. And I hope you guys enjoyed as much as you have with all my other videos throughout the past 3 years. So, for the last time with EarthSpark, if you're excited as I am to talk about this series finale, be sure to like, comment, and of course subscribe. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Legacy of Hope picks up immediately where Hometown Heroes ended, with Hot Rod arriving on Cybertron through the space bridge he took after stealing Robbie and Mo's Cybersleeves and using it to reforge the Emberstone. As he steps out of the space bridge, we actually also get our first proper look in EarthSpark at Cybertron, and immediately with EarthSpark Cybertron's design, I am immediately reminded specifically of Cybertron as it appeared in Prime, RID-15, and Cyberverse. It really reminds me of a lot of the architecture actually from Prime more so, and RID-15 with the way all the bridges and buildings look. Clearly everything's more run down, kind of like how it was in Prime, and even Cyberverse, like in the first episode of Season 3, I believe. It reminds me a lot of that, and as we learn from Alex when all the other Moltos arrive on Cybertron, the city that this space bridge is located in is Praxis, which of course is a famous Cybertronian city that's in several Transformers continuities, but the city of Praxis itself doesn't really get much lore in this, but because as we see with Hot Rod arriving in Praxis with the Emberstone, Robbie and Mo aren't too far behind him, where Robbie pops out of the space bridge right behind Hot Rod, demanding Hot Rod gives him and Mo back the Emberstone, but of course, Hot Rod's not going to give up that easily, so he transforms into his all mode and runs away from Robbie and Mo, and Robbie, even without a cyber sleeve or a cyber suit, is still dead set on chasing Hot Rod on foot throughout the ruins of Praxis, which Mo thankfully stops him in and saying that, like, Robbie, what are you doing? We literally are alone here on Cybertron. We can't talk to anyone through our cyber sleeves because they're gone. We literally have no backup here. We should go back through the space bridge, wait for all the rest of our family to come back and get us. And then Robbie's like, well, if you understand like that we don't have our cyber sleeves, you should know how much I want to get it back. So why don't you just stop holding me back and let me go after Hot Rod? And I love this part with Robbie and Mo, because again, it further shows off how addicted Robbie is to the cyber sleeves. I know a lot of people have been saying that, oh, Robbie's so insufferable in these 2 episodes, that he acts like such a Miko, essentially. But here's the thing with Robbie's character. He is a 14, 15-year-old boy who has spent the last 2 years of his life every single day with these cyber sleeves. He's become dependent on the cyber link he's shared with Mo and the rest of his Terran siblings. He's relied a lot on the powers and the skills that it gives him with his cyber shield and cyber suit, and to have all that just ripped away from him without any sort of warning, of course he's going to be going through withdrawals. He feels like he can't do anything without with the suit, and so I feel like in that regards, it definitely justifies why Robbie's acting this way. Yeah, he's annoying, but that's the point. You're supposed to find Robbie annoying. and people are saying that it's quote-unquote bad writing because Robbie is so annoying. No, that's exactly how you should feel with Robbie. That's not bad writing, that's good writing. Robbie and Mo don't have too much time to argue though, as they are interrupted by seeing several shadowy figures surrounding them, slowly stalking towards them. So immediately, Robbie has Mo and him take cover behind, like, under a bunch of debris in, like, one of the alleyways of Praxis. Though this figure immediately finds them, and Robbie tries to defend himself by slapping his palm, or the back of his hand, to turn, like, into his cyber suit, but he forgets that he doesn't have the cyber sleeve anymore, so he just stares there like stupidly at the unknown figure approaching him and Mo. But we, as the audience, you can tell by the silhouette, and as we'll see later on in this episode, it's very clear who this is, but I'm not gonna say who it is at this point. But that's at the end of our final cold open in EarthSpark, and it's a good setup, I think, to show how Robbie and Mo, like, respond to their first time being on Cybertron. So after that cold open, we cut forward presumably a few more minutes ahead to the rest of the Moltos alongside Bumblebee and Megatron arriving on Cybertron with everyone else in pursuit of Robbie, Mo, and Optimus. And there's this little bit where, for some reason, there's like this little cute, like, eel thing, like eel cyber worm thing with like a singular wheel that it rolls around in, that's like trying to nom on like a small little energon tablet that's left stranded on the ground of Praxis. And I don't know why, but it's just cute seeing like different Transformers franchises show Cybertronian like wildlife almost. TF1 did this really well by showing like the weird rabbit deer things, and then even the IEW2 comics had a cool few like techno animals. And so I like that EarthSpark is keeping its tradition here, where even though it's very tiny with like this weird eel wheel thing, it's still really cute. Like there's this one point when like it's trying to get the energon, but then when all the Moltos and Bumblebee and Megatron show up, and immediately like curls in on itself like an armadillo almost to protect itself, as they all just run past it, nearly crushing it in the process. It's really cute in my opinion, seeing that kind of animal here in the world of EarthSpark. But anyway, that little tangent aside, they all arrive on Cybertron in pursuit of Robbie and Mo, and Alex immediately recognizes the city as Praxis, given that he's the big Transformers lore nerd. And Megatron then mentions how like the city has been completely abandoned and ruined since the war, which I love how Jawbreaker cuts in saying like, oh, thank goodness, because this place sucks. Like Jawbreaker was so excited to go see Cybertron at the end of the last episode, and then he just thinks, oh, this place looks horrible now when he gets here. But it's a small little thing there. But anyway, as they're traversing through the city of Praxis, Twitch tries to contact Robbie and Mo through their cyberlink, but of course, considering that their cybersleeves are gone, she can't feel them or the rest of her Terran siblings at this point. So at this point, no longer able to detect Robbie and Mo that way, she asks Bumblebee what he would do if they couldn't find any Autobots during the war. And so Bumblebee then explains to her that they would use an energon scanning station somewhere in a Cybertronian city, which Megatron happens to know thanks to various spies that he had spying on the Autobots during the war, which Bumblebee is a little bit annoyed and frustrated by. There's several points in this episode in the beginning half here, or beginning third I should say, because this is 3 episodes packed into one, where Megatron constantly mentions a bunch of stuff Bumblebee's gonna say first, and Bumblebee's just like annoyed constantly with how Megatron knows all this. Like he knows how to use the Autobot like comm center, he knows all of Bumblebee's secret moves as well. It's a small little thing, but I've seen people like get annoyed by like, oh, why is Bumblebee getting so annoyed with Megatron in the beginning here? Like, it's just like a harmless little thing here that Megatron is like flexing his Decepticon knowledge to help Bumblebee and the rest of the Moltos navigate Cybertron. I don't see any real problem with that. But anyway, they then make their way to the Energon Scanning Center, but as they do, Thrash notices several very fresh footprints, Cybertronian footprints, that Nightshade also sees as well, and he suggests to the rest of his family that they follow those instead. And then this brings us to the first little argument that he and Twitch have in this episode, which seems to be like the big thing here, where if episode 1 was all about Robbie struggling with Mo over the fact that he needs his cyber sleeve, this episode's main argument is more so about Twitch and Thrash arguing over who should be the leader of the Terrans. Because as we saw back at the end of Hometown Heroes, where Thrash was kind of getting an ego boost after Optimus praised him for how he handled the Arachnomech situation, he's starting to step up more as a leader in this oftentimes challenging Twitch here. So at this point, Twitch and Thrash get into an argument of what they should do, where Twitch says like, oh, like, yeah, of course there are going to be Cybertronian footprints on Cybertron. Those could belong to anyone. We should be going to the Energon scanning center, because then that way we can definitely find Robbie and Mo. But then Thrash is like, well, like, that's going to be so far away, and we have these tracks right here. Why not we just do these right now and go see what they lead us? And then they get into an argument more about, like, struggling, like, arguing over which route they should take. And there's a point here, I really like this, where Twitch goes to Thrash, and she's like, oh, like, you're really gonna have this conversation now after what we talked about alone together, which of course is referring to the little conversation that they had at the beginning of Hometown Heroes, where Twitch was opening up to Thrash about her struggling with the pressures of being a leader. And this convinces Thrash to just drop the whole conversation, which I like that. I like that at this point here, where Thrash hasn't still, like, while he may have more of an ego boost from being praised by Optimus, he still has some reservations and is willing to help out his sister in this regard, where he says, like, okay, fine, like, I'll drop the footprints, we'll go check out the scanner center, whatever, if that's what you really want. Just because he just wants to appease Twitch. He really wants to have her get her confidence back after not only nearly getting killed by the Quintessons back in Season 3, but also nearly getting killed by Stardroid in the last episode. That Twitch is 0-2 currently, and he wants to see his sister get a W so that she can actually get her confidence back. And I like that when Twitch runs away with, I believe, Bumblebee and Megatron to head closer to the scanning center, Jawbreaker asks Thrash what that was all about, and he straight up tells Jawbreaker that, like, oh, she just needs to feel needed, essentially, which is, like, I like that, though, that Thrash is opening up to the rest of his siblings on what is wrong with Twitch here. And granted, yes, this is a private conversation that Twitch entrusted to Thrash that she just wanted to have with him, but I like that Thrash is trying to help out his sister still, even though he's not going about it the best way. He's still trying in his own way, and I like that. Eventually, the group makes their way inside the scanner center, where Bumblebee starts to get it back online, trying to scan through the entirety of Praxis to see if they can find Robbie, Mo, or even Hot Rod or Optimus as well. Seeing if they find Hot Rod or Optimus, they can find where Robbie and Mo went as well. But it's going to take some time. First, when the first scan completes, Bumblebee realizes that there's no Cybertronian signals in Praxis at all, so Twitch has widen the search to cover more of Cybertron at this point. And at this point, Thrash is getting more and more antsy, feeling that it is just a waste of time, since the scanner's taking forever to go, and he says, oh, we should just go back and follow the tracks. And Twitch, again, she tries to brush off Thrash, saying that, like, oh, the adults are talking, Thrash, and just dismissing him in general, because she believes that, oh, she's the leader, she knows what she's talking about, not Thrash, who hasn't led anything in his life as far as she's concerned. And again, like, I've seen people a lot online saying that, like, oh, Twitch and Thrash's arguments throughout this episode is so annoying because it feels forced and all that. I really don't see it that way, because we've seen, not only in this episode in Hometown Heroes, but also all the way back in Season 1, Twitch has perfection syndrome, and she's kind of a control freak in that regards, where she expects everything to go a certain way, and if it doesn't go that way, or if the plan that she has set out doesn't go the way she wants it to, she kind of freaks out and loses, like, and starts to doubt herself because she thinks everything's wrong now. We saw this in Season 1 with Security Protocol Bare Necessities. We even saw it in Season 3 with The Great Escape, where she was helping all of her siblings figure out how to do the little mini games that Fairmeister put up for them. This is 100% Twitch's character. She is someone that constantly expects everything to go a certain way, and when it doesn't go that way, she has a problem with it. And Thrash kind of challenges her in this regard too throughout this whole thing, where he says to her that, like, oh, like, yeah, like, your plans have been so good so far. Who was it, remember, that, like, Optimus was praising for his skills during the whole thing with Mandroid last episode? And it's that whole thing that Thrash truly believes that Twitch isn't on her best right now. And while at first here he's just trying to help Twitch and say, hey, listen, you're not the only one who can make decisions and, like, give suggestions on this team. You don't have to do everything. I can come up with my own ideas too and make my own plans. But he's trying to do it to, like, help Twitch out and relieve her of some of her stress, not, like, take over her position. Though later on, though, Thrash does kind of get angry and more annoyed with Twitch and genuinely does believe he'd make a better leader than her. But that's just because over constant, like, arguments with Twitch as this episode goes on. Like, as we see here, Thrash is just tired of sitting around doing nothing, waiting for the scanner to finished. So instead, he notices like some big, looks like some broadcast station, and asks B what it's about, which Megatron, of course, being, with thanks to all his Decepticon spies, mentions that it is an Autobot broadcasting channel, just broadcast to any Autobots in the area. So Thrash goes over to it, pressing some buttons on it to try and boost the signal, only to realize it's a giant, like, basically he can start a giant broadcast throughout the whole city of Praxis. So Thrash does that and starts to make a little broadcast where he calls out to Robbie and Mo, telling them both where he and the rest of the Moltos are, telling them to head over to the comm center in Praxis to see if they're still within the city. However, this has a little bit of a bad side effect where, as Thrash is making this call, it ends up alerting a bunch of undead-looking Cybertronians that are all around the city to head straight to the comm center and attack them as well. And now, when I first saw this episode, I thought at first these were going to be EarthSpark's version of Terrorcons, which of course are known throughout the Transformers franchise as more zombie Cybertronians. We've seen them in Transformers Prime, we saw a bit of them in the Bayverse and the IDW comics, but mostly in Prime is what most people know them from. But as Megatron explains, when all of the zombie spots actually get to the base, they're actually referred to what is known as the Sparkless. There isn't much explanation given to the Sparkless, sadly, as all we get from them is as Bumblebee, Megatron, and the rest of the Moltos are fighting all the Sparkless. In a really cool series of shots, by the way. The storyboard artists on this episode went crazy with this fight, as well as all the other fights throughout this episode. B asks, like, oh, like, they're usually not, like, so violent like this. What's caused them to attack us? And that's when Thrash realizes that it was probably his message that brought them all here. But I want to learn more about the Sparkless. Like, so are they just docile, undead Cybertronians that just wander the wilderness or the wilderness of Cybertron, and they mind their business unless they're provoked or something, or what? I just don't understand what the Sparkless are, and I wish we got more lore about it. Granted, this is the last episode of the whole series, but still, like, a few more throwaway lines instead of just only like fighting without like any lines whatsoever. I think that could have gone a big way with broadening the world of EarthSpark, and just a little con I have with this part of the episode, in my opinion. So all the Moltos and Autobots work together to fight off all the Sparkless zombies until Bumblebee manages to get them all out of the scanning center by using himself as a distraction, driving out of the base and letting all the zombies follow him. Once they're all outside, he drives right back in and slams the door shut so none of them can get in. Though there's this one moment where one of the Sparkless's hands grabs one of B's shoulders, so he just throws it off and starts wildly shooting at it, which I thought was pretty funny. But then once that's done, the scanner has finally finished scanning the more cities in Cybertron, where the whole scan is complete and everything shows there's no signs except for what appears to be a dead zone in the top right corner, which Twitch believes could be someone jamming the signal there. So she believes that could be where Hot Rod is potentially holding Robbie, Mo, and Optimus, and they suggest they all go there. However, before anyone else mentions that and goes to help out Twitch, Thrash then points out in the bottom left corner where the scanner has picked up 2 Decepticon signals, supposedly, instead. And so Thrash is more keen to follow the Decepticon signals, believing that since there are actual signals there, maybe they can go there and find if those Decepticons have any idea where Robbie, Mo, or Optimus are. However, of course, Twitch argues with Thrash again here, where Twitch is like, oh, we're not looking for Decepticons, though, we're looking for Robbie and Mo. And then Thrash goes, yeah, like, we're gonna find them in a dead zone where there could potentially be nothing there, which then that devolves into another argument between Twitch and Thrash, where honestly I really like this argument that the two of them have. Again, Catherine Kavari and Zeno Robinson do really good in these episodes. I think these 2 finale episodes are some of their strongest work throughout the entire series, alongside a lot of episodes from seasons 1 and I think season 3 also had a good few Thrash lines. But I think this is arguably Zeno Robinson's best performance as Thrash since, I want to say, season 1 with the House Rules episode. That, to me, I still think is like the peak Thrash moment, in my opinion. But this is really good, too. So Thrash and Twitch are still arguing with each other, where Twitch is like, oh, just because Optimus praised you one time doesn't mean you're the leader. And then Thrash tries to clap back by saying, like, oh, you're just jealous then that Optimus gave me praise over you for once. And so Twitch is like, yeah, right. Why would I be care? Because this team would be so much better if you weren't on it. And then Thrash is like, well, I think our team would be better if we actually had a leader who didn't overthink everything. And again, this is all coming back to Twitch's perfection syndrome. We've seen her overthink herself countless times throughout the entire series, not just this one moment. Sure, I think Twitch is being a little more hurtful here, where she says like, oh, the team would be better off without you, but it's more so because she feels threatened by Thrash taking her place as the leader of the Terrans. She's been the leader ever since the end of Season 1, really. I'd say halfway through Season 1 when she and all the rest of her siblings saved Hashtag from Mandroid back in Philadelphia. I think since then, Twitch has kind of put in her mind that she's the leader of the Terrans, and so when she has that leadership taken away from her, it almost has its own form of addiction like Robbie has with his Cybersleeve. Twitch is so used to being the leader, so used to putting these crazy expectations on herself. When someone tries to take that away from her, she feels like threatened and challenged almost in that regard. So the argument just keeps going bigger, getting larger and larger between Twitch and Thrash, where at this point, Jawbreaker tries to break up the fight by saying like, hey Twitch, it's all, just calm down, okay? We know you're through a lot of stress and feel like we don't need you, but we actually do. But at that point, Twitch interrupts Jawbreaker because she feels completely hurt by Thrash at this point, that he would even tell them all that she doesn't feel like the rest of her siblings need her. So Thrash tries to like come up with a comeback, but he just can't. He knows he's screwed up by telling Jawbreaker, Hashtag, and Nightshade that about Twitch's vulnerability there. So Twitch just blows up at that point, saying like, oh, I wish you were my brother at this point, and they sort of just split off from there, where Mo and Dot and Nightshade, I should say, tried to like get Twitch and Thrash to break up the fight, but clearly Twitch and Thrash don't want to be near each other at this point, where Twitch says that she's going to go ahead and check out the dead zone, and anyone who wants to come with her is welcome to come. Meanwhile, Thrash is going to go and check out the 2 Decepticon signals that the scanner picked up. So from here on out, the group splits up into 2 smaller groups. Twitch's team consists of Hashtag, Nightshade, Alex, and Bumblebee, while Thrash's team consists of him, Jawbreaker, and Dot. With that, all them split up, and we're going to go into 2 different stories. For now, I'm going to go ahead and focus on Twitch's team's story, because there's not much really story with Twitch's, actually, at this point. We're going to start off here with Twitch's team story, which involves her, Hashtag, Nightshade, Bumblebee, and Alex all heading out into the wilderness of Cybertron to go and find this dead zone that the scanner back in Praxis picked up. All the while, though, we can clearly tell, though, that Twitch is slowly losing more of her team support as we see Hashtag and Alex start to worry about like, oh, I hope Robbie and Mo are alright. Well, and if we don't find them in this dead zone, let's just hope Thrash's team is able to find them instead. And Twitch immediately picks up on this. She starts being antagonistic towards Alex and Hashtag, asking like, oh, why do you, oh, so you're supporting Thrash now instead of me? And Hashtag tries to cover herself, saying like, hey, we not signed with you or Thrash. We're on the whole Malto team, on the Malto side, essentially. That basically they're kind of the same way, that pretty much they don't care whether Twitch or Thrash is right. They just want Twitch and Thrash to make up so they can just be a whole cohesive unit again. And that's kind of what, it's kind of weird comparing that to how Dot, Megatron, and Jawbreaker treat Thrash, where they're all for Thrash like expressing himself, but they do like I think Dot does make a few points to Thrash about like how this isn't a competition, but she does feel that Thrash and Twitch do need some time apart from each other to just sort of cool things down, understand that they're all on the same side here. They're not trying to fight each other to prove who's the better leader here. And I do wish that Hashtag, Nightshade, and Alex made Twitch see that a bit more here, instead of just kind of trying to be neutral in this who's better, Twitch or Thrash as a leader argument. But it is a small thing, so I can let it slide. So anyway, Twitch's team continues heading towards this dead zone, which leads to a giant crater in the center of Cybertron, which once they get to it, though, they are ambushed by all of the Decepticons we saw leave Cybertron back in Season 3 of EarthSpark, or at the very least, all with the exception of Breakdown. We see here Skywarp, Novastorm, Soundwave, Swindle, Hardtop, Skullcruncher, Frenzy, Laserbeak. Even Octopunch is here just randomly as one of the random Decepticon goons. He doesn't have any build-ups at all. He's not a big character. He's just a random Decepticon goon that just happened to be on Cybertron already with the other Decepticons. But apparently, they're all here to fight Twitch's team, so they get into a fight, which cuts us back to Thrash's team story. Now with Thrash's team, we have him, Jawbreaker, Megatron, and Dot walking through the cities of Praxis following the Decepticon signals that the scanner picked up back in Praxis, and that leads them to 3 figures standing in an alleyway together, and one of them is clearly, we know as the audience, that is no doubt Mirage, and I gotta say, I absolutely love EarthSpark Mirage's design. I'll go into it more because I just want to focus on the plot here. And we see 2 other smaller look to be exosuits next to Mirage, which Thrash identifies those are the 2 Decepticon signals, the signal picked up earlier, but he's confused as to why this third one seemingly wasn't detected, which Megatron believes it's perhaps that the Decepticon is using some sort of cloaking technology, but we as the audience know because that's actually Mirage, so therefore he's an Autobot and wouldn't be detected as Decepticon. But anyway, Thrash orders Megatron, Dot, and Jawbreaker to start, like, preparing an ambush to ambush the supposed 3 Decepticons. But when they actually put the plans together, everyone's gone. Or at least they are until Dot notices Mirage skulking about in the shadows of one of the destroyed buildings, and he starts firing on all 4 of them. And that gives off this little funny but really cool fight where Mirage battles not only Thrash, but also Dot, Megatron, and Jawbreaker. He is handling all of them so easily, and I gotta say, this is where we finally get to learn who voices Mirage, and I'm so happy to say EarthSpark Mirage is voiced by none other than Troy Baker, who also voices Shockwave in this continuity. I gotta say, EarthSpark Mirage's voice is perfect, and that's actually exactly how I wanted Hot Rod to sound in EarthSpark, because I mentioned this back in my Hometown Heroes review, but when I was reading the IDW comics, specifically More Meets the Eye, I imagined IDW Rodimus having Troy Baker's voice and him sounding exactly like how he does here with EarthSpark Mirage. His Mirage voice is so good. I like this sort of snarky, cocky, hotshot-like vibe that EarthSpark Mirage brings with him, that where he feels himself up really as this really awesome Autobot spy, absolutely able to trick Thrash, Jawbreaker, Dot, and Megatron as he fights them all off, creating all these different copies of himself. Very similar to Rise of the Beast Mirage in terms of personality. It reminds me more of as well, but a lot more toned down than Rise of the Beast Mirage, I would say. But anyway, yeah, EarthSpark Mirage is great. I love his design where it feels like a nice mix of G1, but also that unique, curvy EarthSpark aesthetic, if you know what I'm talking about. The way most of the Terrans look, I want to say lean more towards how Twitch and Thrash and hashtags new designs actually feel more. That's what Mirage's design looks more like. And Troy Baker again does a great job as Mirage here. He really uses his Reese voice from Tales from the Borderlands 1, mixed in with a bit his voice is Jonesy from Fortnite, if anyone ever plays Fortnite. He basically uses his Jonesy voice here in Mirage, and I think it totally fits him. It's a great voice for him, but also part of me wishes with how well they nailed Mirage's voice, why couldn't they have gotten Troy Baker to voice Hot Rod instead? Like, I would have preferred personally if he voiced Hot Rod over Mirage, but I don't hate EarthSpark Mirage for that. EarthSpark Mirage is perfect, and I love just how much he taunts Dot, Thrash, Jawbreaker, and Megatron throughout this fight, like saying like how bad fighters they are. Even when Mirage and Thrash try to, Megatron and Thrash try to reason Mirage, saying that, oh, we're Autobots together, the war's over, we should be on the same side. But of course, Mirage, having been stuck on Cybertron this whole time, doesn't believe that Megatron is actually good now, so he keeps fighting him and believes that since Thrash is with Megatron, that means he and Jawbreaker are Decepticon sympathizers as well, so he's fighting them all off. We get this one little brief moment where when Jawbreaker's fighting one of the Mirage clones, he ends up finding a discarded sledgehammer that looks very similar to the Forge of Solus Prime from TFP, or even the Magnus Hammer from Animated. But it's got a nice little bunch of spikes on it, makes it look very similar to Jawbreaker's body. So I love how throughout this whole episode now, Jawbreaker just picks up this sledgehammer as his signature weapon, quote unquote, and tries to use it to battle Mirage. But again, even with his hammer, and I like how Jawbreaker uses his hammer later on in the episode, but here he's just no match for Mirage. He easily overpowers all 4 of them. However, that is until, while Dot is fighting Mirage as well, she ends up picking up like this rusty piece of metal that looks like a sickle because her laser gun got destroyed by the Sparkless zombies back in the beginning of this episode. She throws it at Mirage, who just easily dodges it like a boomerang, and then that's when she notices though that there are a bunch of human-looking footprints on the ground, which I'm confused by, considering Robbie and Mo here are in mech suits. Why would they have human footprints on the, unless they just like, yeah, I don't know that. That's kind of a outlier in my opinion. But anyways, Dot decides to go ahead and chase after these footprints, leaving Megatron, Jawbreaker, and Thrash to fight Mirage on their own. Dot follows the human-shaped footprints into this other abandoned building on Cybertron, where she finds none other than Robbie and Mo alive and well, and inside these new Decepticon exosuits that Mo explains to Dot Mirage lent to them that run off of Energon. I actually really like, though, how Dot finds both Robbie and Mo, where she doesn't realize at first that it's Robbie and Mo inside the exosuits. She just sees the one that Mo's piloting, like, kicking and punching a bunch of crates that like to practice on. Meanwhile, Robbie's just walking into the wall like he's a video game NPC, and that I could see that gif of just a gif of Robbie just walking into the wall repeatedly for like an hour straight. I'd probably continue laughing over it. So, but yeah, it's when Dot goes to attack these two, what she believes to be Decepticons, is when Mo reveals that it's the two of them and that they were found by Mirage, who gave them the exosuits to help stay safe on Cybertron. What I am confused by, though, is the fact that as we saw Thrash's scanner picked up when he first saw the two of them with Mirage, the exosuits are Decepticon exosuits. But the other thing is, these exosuits look very similar to the same ones that were used in the G1 Transformer show, specifically by Spike and his son Daniel in seasons 3 and 4 of the G1 show. But the question is then, why are Decepticons using these exosuits? Like, were they because, like, so smaller Decepticons, like, let's say Frenzy, could, like, fight at, like, a higher power level than, let's say, just, like, tiny ones? I don't know, but it's never explained why the Decepticons have these exosuits. I think it would make more sense if these were abandoned Autobots exosuits, but I guess they needed to be Decepticons for the plot or whatever. But I will admit that is kind of another like thing I wish the show explained a bit more, and I do think is kind of to the detriment of this episode, in my opinion. So having now found Robbie and Mo, Dot rejoins the fight with the two of them, which Jawbreaker notices and calls out to everyone else that she's found Robbie and Mo, and because of that, when Robbie and Mo explain to Mirage that everyone else are their family, Mirage ends up stopping the fight as well, and it's just more so surprised that Megatron was actually telling the truth for once. Again, Troy Baker is so good as Mirage. It's arguably one of the highlights of this episode. I just think the whole character of Mirage is so cool. Troy Baker plays him so well, and I would love to see if we get Mirage in another Transformers series. And I just love how Mirage has become so much more popular over the past like 3 years in the Transformers franchise. First, of course, he was one of the main characters in Rise of the Beast alongside Optimus, thanks to Pete Davidson, and I think Rise of the Beast Mirage was really good. Now he's in EarthSpark, but then he's also a main character in Cyberworld, the new YouTube series that's on Transformers, and I think Cyberworld Mirage is really cool too. And I really hope that this continues, that we get to see more of Mirage in the Transformers franchise going forward. But anyway, with all that taken care of, Mirage explains to Dot, Jawbreaker, Thrash, and Megatron that, yeah, he found Robbie and Mo when they first arrived on Cybertron, hooked them up with the exosuits, and that together that they may stand a chance at getting back the Ember Stone. However, at this point, though, a beeper suddenly goes off on Mirage's body where he says that he needs to get more Energon, so he leaves the rest of the team to go get more Energon, which we'll see more of Mirage, though, very, very soon. Meanwhile, at this point, though, when Thrash was fighting Mirage, Twitch had called him, asking his team to come over and help them battle Decepticons. However, Thrash brushed her off, saying that, like, oh, we're busy fighting our own fight, but it'll be over soon, so once we do that, we'll totally come save you. So yeah, once Mirage runs away, Thrash, of course, takes time to call Twitch back, rub it in her face that they found Robbie and Mo, and that they're all gonna come over to save her team in the process. Thrash's team finally arrives to help out Twitch's team with battling all the Decepticons in the dead zone, and we get this one point where Thrash decides to style more on Twitch, where of course, when he gets back, he rubs it in Twitch's face that he found Robbie and Mo, therefore proving to his eyes that, oh, he was right all along and that he should be the leader here. And at this point, he starts to fuel himself up even more by proving, like, he goes around, like, bashing on all the Decepticons without, like, any problem whatsoever. He, like, one-punches Skullcruncher. He throws his sidecar door shield at Frenzy in a really cool shot where he actually knocks off her glasses. In the one and only time we actually get to see that EarthSpark Frenzy actually has eyes underneath her glasses. I thought it was just, like, a uniquely shaped visor, because like several other Transformers have visors, like say Soundwave or Jazz, so I thought it was like a similar thing here. But no, EarthSpark Frenzy actually has eyes underneath her glasses. I also like too that she kind of has like little like cyber lines that go down from her eyes down to her cheeks that almost look like teardrop makeup, I think. And I think that also really is a cool way of going into leaning in towards EarthSpark Frenzy's like punk rocker aesthetic. Just another thing I like about the designs of EarthSpark. Nick Roche cooked with a lot of these designs, which of course he also created Hot Rod and Mirage's designs, so which is no surprise. His Hot Rod and Mirage designs were awesome, even if I don't fully agree with Eric Bauza voicing Hot Rod. But anyway, Thrash is just seen silent. Everyone, there's even a point where he's battling Frenzy and she's shooting lightning and sound waves at him, and he just starts dodging him by like breakdancing, does Michael Jackson's like smooth criminal dance routine for absolutely no reason. It's so random. It's so random, but I actually kind of like the randomness here, that it just feels so uniquely EarthSpark. Reminds me a lot of in season 1 when Twitch and Thrash fought Frenzy and Laserbeak back then, and they used their little like rhyme with like their little like jingle that they came up with involving like scouting and drawing the enemy's attention away to quote unquote ruin their day. And it just reminds me a lot of that, just a bunch of harmless silly stuff that I think is very on board for Thrash. He's cocky, he's a showboat, he loves to make a spectacle out of everything, and this part he's really feeling himself up, that he not only did he get praise from Optimus, turns out his plan to go save Robbie and Mo was right all along, so of course he's gonna like kind of like show off a bit in that. But of course it doesn't last forever, because he gets his ass handed to him by Decepticons alongside Dot and Alex, actually, when they're with Megatron. And just as that's happening, a giant tower erupts from the giant pit that we saw Twitch's group arrive at earlier, and that reveals like a huge space with a bunch of cables connected to Cybertron's core, and Decepticons overpower the combined teams, forcing them to retreat. Though here is where something I want you guys to pay attention to. So at this point, we clearly see like Dot and Alex get knocked out of Megatron, and they're surrounded by Decepticons, and Twitch wants to rescue them, but Megatron says that they can and they need to escape for now, and they'll find a way to get Dot and Alex back later. So they run away, and in this shot, you can clearly see everyone running away, including all the Terrans. That's Twitch, Nightshade, hashtag Jawbreaker, even Thrash. I want you to focus on Thrash here really closely, because we'll come back to that later. So once the giant tower emerges from the pit, we cut to finally Optimus' perspective after nearly 20 minutes into this episode, where we see where he's been and what happened to him after he, Alita, Prowl, and Wheeljack went through the space bridge with Hot Rod. It's in here that we see Optimus on his knees, chained up by none other than Breakdown, Hot Rod, and Shockwave. And man, what is it with so many Transformers shows putting Optimus in chains in such suggestive positions? Cyberverse did it, The Last Knight did it, Cyberverse did it, and now EarthSpark's doing it. I swear, someone here on the Transformers team has got like some sort of fetish for seeing Optimus bound and chained up in like literally every single Transformers thing. Like, it's crazy how this keeps happening, and this is the second time it's happened in a Transformers finale episode, with of course the first time being with Cyberverse, when Tarn had him all chained up in the Coliseum. So it's at this point Optimus is being held by Hot Rod, Breakdown, and Shockwave, and a giant like chamber opens in the middle of this Coliseum prison cell that Optimus is in. And of course we get introduced to none other than our big bad for this final episode of EarthSpark, Leech Maximo. And it's crazy because of course Leech Maximo is not a new character to Transformers mythos. He has been one of the 13 Primes in pretty much every single incarnation of the Transformers franchise, most notably Prime, RID-15, TF1, and IEW comics. In the IEW comics, for instance, actually, he was a very big villain in those comics, and a minor villain in some throwaway Prime and RID-15 books. But this is our first ever time Leech Maximo has actually showed up in a cartoon, and I think for a very first appearance for Leech Maximo in a Transformers cartoon, it's a strong one. His design is so cool, how he comes out wearing this like almost like flight aviator mask over his lower face, and having this giant cape that covers most of his body, and his voice is really good too. When I first watched this episode, I thought it was Alan Tudyk also voicing Leech Maximo, because it sounds a lot like his Optimus voice, but no, EarthSpark Leech Maximo is actually voiced by Nolan North, who of course already voices Swindle and Hardtop. And I didn't recognize that first until I heard a few of Leech's lines towards the end of this episode, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, that's Nolan North, because for any of my Call of Duty Zombies fans, he uses the exact same voice for Leech Maximo that he did for Brutus in the Call of Duty Zombies series, specifically in Black Ops 2, 6, and 7. And it's, as soon as I recognize, I'm like, oh my god, I can't unhear Leech Maximo as Brutus now from Black Ops Zombies. It's so funny. But anyway, Leech Maximo introduces himself to Optimus, which Optimus is shocked by, because according to him, he had apparently been killed millennia ago. But Leech denies this, stating that all he wanted was to just take over the world in Cybertron's, or the universe should say, in Cybertron's name, though Optimus and the rest of the Primes worked together to banish Leech Maximo to some sort of void space. And based on what happens to Leech at the end of this episode, I think I can understand like what that exactly implies. But yeah, it's at this point though that Leech Maximo unveils his whole plan to Optimus, where he mentions that he is going to use all the Prime artifacts he's collected over the years, in which he literally states here that he single-handedly tracked down and killed every one of these other Primes besides Optimus, collecting each of their unique relics in the process. The only two he needed were the Matrix of Leadership from Optimus and the Emberstone from Quintessons Prime. So we see here that he decides to demonstrate this by pulling out the Starsaber from his cloak, which he says that he himself got from Prima Prime, or Prima Prime, however you want to pronounce it. Leech pronounced it Prima in this show, so I'm gonna call him Prima Prime. So yeah, he mentions that he got the Starsaber after killing Prima Prime, and used it to torture Optimus by pressing it into his chest. And it's cool as he does this, you can actually see the blade of the Starsaber fill with energon. And it's cool that this is the second time we've seen the Starsaber in a Transformers show. Of course, the first time being in Transformers Prime, where it was Optimus's weapon of choice in seasons 2 and 3. And this is kind of the first time we've seen it since then, where EarthSpark Starsaber is actually very similar in design to the Prime Starsaber, but it does have its own unique bells and whistles. But anyway, yeah, as Leech Maximo is torturing Optimus, he explains that, yeah, that he has since he has all the Prime relics now, thanks to Hot Rod getting the Emberstone from him, all he needs now is to rip the Matrix of Leadership out of Optimus's chest, and then he'll be able to use it to basically bend the entire universe to his will, which Optimus stresses. And not only just Optimus though, several characters throughout this episode constantly stress to Leech Maximo that's not how the Matrix works. Like every time he says, oh, I'm gonna use the Matrix to rule the cosmos or whatever, Optimus, Megatron, Twitch, they all say like at different points throughout the episode, oh, that's not how the Matrix works though. And I just think that's a funny little gag that they have going on throughout this entire thing. Leech Maximo keeps torturing Optimus with the Starsaber, draining his energon, and Shockwave and Breakdown just look on, totally unsettled by it, where even Shockwave mentions that he's even, like, admiring that Optimus is still staying true to his morals and refusing to bow to Leech Maximo. Even Breakdown mentions that, like, oh yeah, it's kind of hard to like root against the guy when he's so kind-hearted like this. But Leech Maximo tries to get Breakdown and Shockwave back on his side by claiming that, oh, the reason why Cybertron is dying is because Optimus destroyed the space bridge and the Allspark in the process when he and Megatron threw it in there all the way back, as we saw in the flashback in season 1 episode 16. So that's kind of how Leech Maximo is convincing not only Breakdown, Shockwave, and the other Decepticons, but also Hot Rod as well to work with him. He's trying to basically turn everyone against Optimus, painting him as this villain that is destroying Cybertron by destroying the space bridge and Allspark, and using that to say, hey, Optimus couldn't save your world, but here I am offering you the solution if we just turn all the planets in the universe into just giant energon deposits with the Emberstone and the Enigma of combination to basically create this giant web of worlds that can keep Cybertron sustained for all eternity. I think that's a cool plan for Leech Maximo, and I think as his first ever appearance in a Transformers cartoon, it's a really cool design for him, I gotta say, even though with its bits and pieces later on in this episode, I do admit, though, at times he does look a bit too similar to the MCU Ultron, but it is what it is. While Leech Maximo tortures Optimus, we also actually get to see where Mirage went to after he said he needed to go refuel on Energon and left Thrash's team when they reunited with Robbie and Mo. So we see him actually underneath the platform Leech, Optimus, and everyone else is on top of, collecting a bunch of energon from a deposit when he hears Optimus being tortured by Leech Maximo above him. So this causes Mirage to spur into action and deploys a bunch of holograms onto the scene to confuse all Decepticons and Leech and free Optimus. It's at this point then that Mirage works with Optimus to try and free all the other Autobots trapped in the prison, or in the prison complex. That includes Alita, Wheeljack, and Prowl. They're able to free Alita and Wheeljack, but before they can get to Prowl's cell, Leech Maximo throws 3 darts at the cell, locking Prowl in, very similar to the same darts Hot Rod used to remove Robbie and Mo's Cybersleeves from their arms in that. So even though Optimus at first tries to remove the darts and save Prowl, Prowl urges Optimus to leave him behind, as Leech Maximo can't get the Matrix or kill Optimus. So with some hesitance from Optimus, though, he does end up leaving the Coliseum with Mirage, Alita, and Wheeljack, and they all manage to get out. So Leech Maximo is about to go ahead and chase after them, but that's not before we see all the other Decepticons like Swindle and all them. They come in with the prisoners they've collected, and it is none other than Dot, Alex, and Thrash. But we just saw in the last clip when Twitch was running away with everyone, with Megatron, Bumblebee, and everyone else. We clearly saw Thrash there. He's right there in his alt mode, driving away with them. And yet, in here, though, he's right here with, Dot and Alex being captured by Decepticons. Okay, this is clearly a very, very big animation error on the EarthSpark team's part. Granted, the scene where Twitch and everyone else is running away from Leech Maximo's forces, it's like a 2-3 second shot, but still, you have Thrash running away with the Terrans in that shot, and yet here, what was meant to happen though was that he got captured alongside Dot and Alex, so it's clear that Thrash wasn't meant to be in that shot. Yeah, that's it's a bit disappointing, I'm not gonna lie, that that 88 pictures messed up there. It is disappointing, and it's going to confuse some people, so unfortunately, that is one animation error I just can't overlook, sadly, so I am going to have to take points off for that, unfortunately. There are some cool shots, though, that as the Autobots are escaping from Leech Maximo's forces, we see when Optimus, Alita, and Wheeljack come out, and alongside Mirage to help the rest of the Terrans, both Twitch and Thrash's teams, fight off the Decepticons. We get a few cool shots in here. One, we get another reunion between Bumblebee and Breakdown, which again, we're still winning. We're still in this game, Breakbee fans. We see Bumblebee fighting with Breakdown, where clearly Bumblebee is even more angry with Breakdown, that he's willing to side with the evil Prime Leech Maximo to destroy other worlds. And he like literally straight up asks like Breakdown, like, why are you doing side with Leech Maximo? And Breakdown tries to justify it by saying that he and the rest of the Decepticons are surviving. And again, I love the angst here as a big Breakbee fan. Even though they broke up back in the start of Season 3, to see them still at each other's throats here, even though they're still fighting for the same thing. Breakdown just wants... He never was driven by, like, being evil or such. We only saw him working with Decepticons back in Season 3 because he wanted to survive as a Cybertronian, but also see Cybertron be brought back to life as well. So I think all of this, despite the pain it gives me to see him and Bumblebee fight each other, it fits EarthSpark Breakdown's character that he wants to just keep Cybertron alive and just keep himself and his fellow Decepticons alive as well. We saw this again back in Season 3, The Need for Reed, where he said to Bumblebee, "You're my best friend, but the Decepticons are my family." I like that they're sticking to that here with, this episode was also written by Ian Bush, Dale Malinowski, and Greg Wiseman. And I think they do a great job of keeping the core themes that Breakdown's character has been going throughout the entirety of this show, in my opinion. Another shot I really like here is when Mirage is actually working with Megatron, trying to get them all to escape, but he's distracted by Shockwave when the Shockwave comes in to attack him, thrusting his little grappling hook arm, and what it seems to be at first, it actually goes through Mirage's chest, and I thought, like, oh my god, did they just kill Mirage? I wouldn't be surprised if they did, considering this is the last episode. But similarly to how they pulled a fake out with us in Season 1 when we thought Mandroid stabbed Nightshade in the stomach with his spear, only to turn out it was actually Agent Schloeder disguised as Nightshade. Very similarly here, turns out what Shockwave stabbed is none other than just one of Mirage's holograms. So the hologram taunts Mirage or Shockwave before disappearing, leaving Shockwave's arm stuck in the ground, and that gives Mirage and all the other Autobots enough time to escape finally, even though they do lose Thrash, Dot, and Alex. Now, almost halfway through the episode, Mirage leads the combined groups of Twitch and Thrash's teams, and what's left of them, at least, with Thrash, Dot, and Alex captured by Leech Maximo, back to his secret base, where he describes as an old Decepticon base early on during the war. Though, as Mirage enters the base, we can see it is actually none other than McAdams, the very famous bar that has been in many Transformers continuities, most notably recently the IEW comics and the Cyberverse cartoon. However, here I actually really like all the different decor we can see around EarthSpark's version of McAdams. We can actually see on the left a giant hologram for the Iacon 5000, which of course for any Transformers fans, that was the big race Orion Pax and D16 took part in at the start of TF1. We even see statues of Brawl from Season 1 of EarthSpark that was killed by Mandroid, and even Megatron himself, presumably as like old-time gladiators that were fighting during on Cybertron before the war. What's interesting, though, is the fact that Mirage mentions that this is an old Decepticon base in the middle of nowhere. So either one of two things. Either A, this was intended to just be a random Decepticon base that had not McAdams at all, and the art team didn't get that, or 2, McAdams genuinely was out here in the middle of nowhere, and then it got turned into a Decepticon base when the war started. I like to think it's probably the latter, that McAdams was a more neutral-based Cybertronian bar and, like, rec place for Cybertrons to hang out in, but then when the war started, the Decepticons took it over to be, like, a storehouse base for themselves. But anyways, Mirage brings everyone in and introduces himself as the leader of the quote-unquote Renegade Alliance against Leech Maximo, who has apparently managed to convert every other Cybertronian on Cybertron against him. And so Mo says, oh, you're the leader of the Renegade Alliance then? Who else is part of it? And unfortunately here, Mirage then just creates a bunch of holograms of himself, basically implying that he is the only member of this alliance, that he's just been on a one-man army fight against Leech Maximo's group by himself. And though I do like this point, though, where Mirage is making all these holograms of himself, where one's like, oh, I'm the janitor, I'm the new guy, I'm just happy to be here. And then there's one just leaning against the wall, trying to act all cool, saying like, oh, I'm so bad, I'm the Renegade's renegade, or something like that. And they had no right. The animators had no right making EarthSpark Mirage look this fine. Like, oh my god, the way the shot frames his thighs, and it's like, come on, EarthSpark, what are you doing? You already gave EarthSpark Megatron killer thighs. You have to give Mirage them too. Now, you're killing me here. Me and all the other Robo-Simps are gonna die from how thirsty you're making us. It's crazy. The group doesn't have much time to rest, though, as all of a sudden, all of the Autobots end up starting to feel very lethargic and weak, including Megatron as well, which all the Terrans are confused by. Even Robbie and Mo mentioned that the Energon levels in their exosuits are rapidly depleting, and so none of them are sure of what this means until Nightshade hypothesizes that the reason why this is happening is because that since Cybertron is dying without the Allspark, it must be doing a last-ditch effort to keep itself alive by draining the energon of any living Cybertronians on Cybertron in an effort to keep itself alive instead of the Allspark. And so at this point, Nightshade presumes that, and Orlitas assume that there should be a way to get more energon, where at first Mirage says he thinks he has an idea, but then he pulls up a live feed of Leech Maximo's base showing the Insecticons guarding a bunch of energon locked up. So there's no way to do that. However, then I think it's Bumblebee or Alita that mentions that there was an old energon refinery that was nearby that was creating energon, though Mirage says that it's been shut down for years. However, at this point, Nightshade and the other Terrans offer to help go and like repair the refinery, then bring energon back to Optimus, or to Megatron, Optimus, Wheeljack, and Alita. So at this point, I believe it's Megatron or Optimus that says that, yeah, that's probably going to be the best bet, since considering the Terrans don't run on energon, they can't get drained by Cybertron's core, and therefore wouldn't get tired, so they could go and do the mission themselves. And I think it's Megatron or Optimus that tasks like, oh, Twitch should like lead this mission. And everyone looks to Twitch, and she immediately feels even more pressured. She's like, oh, like, we don't have to do this, do we? And then, like, she pauses for a second, and then it seems like reality starts to set in for her, where she's like, oh, yeah, we really have to do this, don't we? And even though Twitch begrudgingly does go ahead to lead the mission to the Energon Refinery to get it back up and running for the other Autobots and Megatron, clearly you can tell she's feeling very uncomfortable and pressured by this, that it's just adding more stress to her, that already she feels even more like a failure for not only failing to stop the Quintessons and Mandroid before, but now she couldn't even find Robbie and Mo. Thrash saved them, not her, and she feels like that she's just failing even more as a leader at this point, and it's building up towards a giant tipping point we're going to see very, very soon, and I'm excited to cover that. But for now, all the Terrans, including Mirage, head out to go ahead and find the Energon Refinery and restart it, while Robbie and Mo stay behind to go ahead and stick with the other Autobots and Megatron to make sure they're all okay. So while Twitch is leading all the Terrans and Mirage to head to the Energon Refinery to get it fixed up, Megatron and Alita are musing over what exactly Leech Maximo's plan is. It's at here where Megatron correctly predicts Leech's plan, which is to use the Ember Stone and combine it with the Enigma combination at the Well of Sparks in order to create his quote-unquote web of worlds. And Alita is curious as to how he knows Leech Maximo will do that, and Megatron explains by stating that that's what his plan originally was when he was trying to take over Cybertron before the war happened, that he originally wanted to, when Cybertron was dying, turn all rest of the planets in the galaxy into basically energon reserves to power up Cybertron when the planet was dying during the war. However, he got distracted when the war was brought to Earth, among other things. And so after this, Optimus mentions that they should all go to develop sparks to see if Megatron is truly right, and that's what Leech Maximo was planning. However, Mo tries to dissuade Optimus from doing this, considering he and the rest of the Autobots are all very weak still from being drained by the planets of their energon. B, though, tries to reassure Mo that since it's just going to be a recon mission, they won't be in any real danger. They'll just be in and out before anyone notices. So B decides to go with Alita and Megatron, considering they're the 3 most fit to run, and Optimus and Wheeljack are still rather weak compared to them. Robbie wants to go as well, though B puts his foot down here saying, no, it's just gonna be me, Megatron, and Alita. You're not coming because it's way too dangerous. And you can tell that Robbie, though, because of course he's addicted to his Cybersleeve and he wants to get that power back no matter what, he doesn't agree with that, but in B's face he tells him that that he'll stay behind. But clearly, as we'll see later when Mo is talking to Wheeljack, that he clearly didn't listen to him, as Mo tries to go and find Robbie, only to see that he snuck out to go try and follow up to Alita, Bumblebee, and Megatron. At this point, B is furious with Robbie, asking him why he's still here, and Robbie again tries to say that, oh, the Ember Stone belongs to me and Mo, I need to get it back for the 2 of us. And B's like, no, Robbie, you were supposed to stay back at the base, because with Dot and Alex captured by Leech, that makes you and Mo my responsibility. But at this point, he wants to go and tell Robbie to go back to the base and wait until they're done. Alita says that with how close they are to the Well of Sparks, it'd probably be safer for him if he just tagged along for the rest of the mission. So begrudgingly, B lets Robbie come along as long as he does everything that he says for him to do. So because that, Robbie seems to be okay with that and goes in. But come on, guys, we've seen how Robbie's acted in the last 2 episodes. We know he's not gonna listen to him. We're gonna step away from Robbie's story with Bumblebee, Alita, and Megatron for a bit to go back to following Twitch's team with the Terrans and Mirage infiltrating the Energon refinery, where currently it seems like it's all good, it's just abandoned and the control panel is destroyed. As Nightshade goes to investigate it, they notice that it seems to have been tampered with, and they end up calling Wheeljack to see if he can help them with repairing it, which he says that to them that he's able to do. However, as they're working on it with Wheeljack, we see all the other Terrans and Mirage go to just explore different parts of the refinery, and I absolutely love how this is shot by 88 Pictures, and where we see throughout the parts where all the Terrans are exploring the refinery, we can clearly see like an unknown figure stalking them the entire time, and then it all comes to a head when Jawbreaker is just walking around the refinery, and you can clearly see right behind him is Scorponok in his Scorpion alt mode form with the lights of his eyes turned off, and he's just waiting there for Jawbreaker to notice him, but he doesn't, until all of a sudden Scorponok's eyes open and he starts moving towards him, and that's when I believe it's Jawbreaker and Hashtag that finally notice him. And so that ends this little stalking thing, and we cut to the proper fight where all the Terrans except for Nightshade as well as Mirage are fighting Scorponok, while Nightshade is working with Wheeljack to try and restart the Energon refinery. And this fight with Scorponok is kind of tense, where you have all of the other Terrans and Mirage fighting him off. I especially love how Jawbreaker actually gets to do a lot in this fight, where he gets to use his new hammer a lot, show off a bunch of new skills he has, and Jawbreaker picks up the hammer really easily in terms of like being able to use it as a proper weapon. We've never really seen Jawbreaker actually use a weapon compared to his other Terran siblings. Of course, we have Nightshade using their arm blades and wing blades constantly in fights. Hashtag sometimes uses the Cyber Slayers we saw her use back in Season 3, but also the different like Energon weapons built into her alt mode. And then, of course, Twitch and Thrash have their weapons, with Thrash using his sidecar shield and Twitch using both her wing blades, her built-in arm blaster as well, and various other abilities like the turbines built into her rotor wings. So to see Jawbreaker now finally has his own unique weapon with this sledgehammer, I think it's something that's really cool, and part of me wishes that we got to see Jawbreaker use this hammer even more back earlier in EarthSpark. Like, I would have loved to see if Jawbreaker could have had like a sledgehammer that he could have like pulled out of his body when in bot mode to use for fights as well. I think it would have been really cool to have him see and use. But anyway, the fight continues with all the Terrans continuing to battle Scorponok and trying to reason with him that they just want to turn the Energon refinery back on. However, Scorponok insists, though, that the refinery's been destroyed and he's been told to guard it by Leech Maximo from anyone that's trying to ruin it even further. So that kind of makes Nightshade believe that it was actually Leech Maximo that destroyed the Energon refinery as a way to try and try and trick all the Decepticons and Autobots remain on Cybertron into believing that Cybertron truly was dead and the only way to get Energon was to work with him. But anyway, they keep fighting Scorponok, and eventually gets to a point where Nightshade is just about done with the fixing up the refinery controls when they end up deciding whether to either plug in a red wire or a green wire, dude. So they go and ask Wheeljack to see which wire is the correct one, but then Mo suddenly picks up the call instead of Wheeljack, where she tells them that Wheeljack passed out due to all of his Energon being drained at this point. So Nightshade is pretty much on their own to decide what they need to do, which wire to plug in to fix the Energon. And Nightshade's kind of having a little freak out over this, where they don't have enough evidence to show which wire is going to be the right one. So, and they kind of mentioned that, like, oh, they don't want to have the stress of picking the wrong one and basically ruining the whole Energon refinery and letting everyone down in the process. Kind of similar to how Twitch has been feeling this whole time. However, Nightshade goes with their gut and instead picks the green wire over the red one, and that proves to be the correct wire and successfully restarts the Energon refinery. And as Hashtag and Jawbreaker praise Nightshade for getting the right wire plugged in, they explain to the two of them that the reason why they chose the green wire is because they thought it reminded them of Quintessons. I thought they were going to go with green because, of course, Nightshade themselves is green, but no, they decided because they thought that it reminded them of Quintessons, though Nightshade seems to be still having a little bit of an existential thing where they believe that, oh, it was pure luck, that it shouldn't have worked, that there was no scientific reasoning for how it should have been green over red. But clearly, Hashtag and Jawbreaker are just relieved that Nightshade was able to get it fixed up. And at the same time, Jawbreaker is actually able to defeat Scorponok briefly, where he ends up smashing Scorponok right in the head with his sledgehammer once, but then after that changing into his alt mode and delivering one super powerful headbutt right into Scorponok's own head that ends up knocking him out, but at the same time making Jawbreaker really dizzy, so he falls over. Though Twitch manages to give Jawbreaker a little bit of praise as she helps him back up. And I love that Jawbreaker gets a win here, that he actually gets to show his strength on display and be useful to his family, as that's something that Jawbreaker really struggled with a lot back in Season 1. That was the whole reason why he really wanted his alt mode back then, was because he didn't want to be seen as letting down the rest of his family by not having an alt mode and being weak to the rest of his family. So to have that in this moment where Jawbreaker gets one victory against Scorponok is really cool to see. They don't have too much time, though, to celebrate their victory over Scorponok, as within about a minute, Scorponok wakes back up, shifting this time into his bot mode to attack the Terrans and Mirage. So at this point, Nightshade grabs like a few patches of Energon that were created by restarting the refinery and passes them to Twitch, where all of them decide to head straight out of the refinery and head back to McAdams as quick as they can to get the Energon to Optimus, Wheeljack, and the rest of the Autobots in time. Though it's at this point, though, while Scorponok tries to follow the Terrans, he can't completely, as the Terrans and Mirage end up walking straight into an Energon sandstorm that is suddenly kicked up out of nowhere. So Scorponok believes that the sandstorm will just finish off the rest of Terrans and decides to retreat to report to Leech Maximo that they interfered with the Energon refinery. Though I gotta say, at this point, getting to see Scorponok's bot mode, I honestly really like EarthSpark Scorponok. Sure, of course, he's just a glorified goon for Leech Maximo, and he doesn't really give anything, like, personality-wise, but it is cool to see just how much effort is put into Scorponok's design, where it still clearly looks like G1 Scorponok, but it has a few little unique bits to it that make it feel like EarthSpark. Like, especially, I really love how with EarthSpark Scorponok, it almost looks like he kind of has a goatee or beard going on. Furthermore, we also get to hear who voices EarthSpark Scorponok, and it is actually, of course, Roger Craig Smith, who already voices Breakdown. Though unlike Troy Baker, where his Mirage and Shockwave voices are kind of the same, except that for his Shockwave voice, he's just putting on a British accent. I'd say EarthSpark Scorponok sounds a lot deeper and almost more dumb than his Roger Craig Smith's EarthSpark Breakdown voice, where EarthSpark Breakdown, he's deep, but also he's got that, like, charming, suave tone to his voice that I really, really dig. With Breakdown, I mean, with Scorponok, I mean, he sounds a lot more like a typical, like, Decepticon, like, grunt or just big, brutish Decepticon that you would expect to be in like a Decepticon like Rogue Scout at that point. So it's nothing crazy, but I do think that Roger Craig Smith's performance as Scorponok is fitting in my opinion. We've got 2 stories now to follow, one involving Robbie with Bumblebee, Alita, and Megatron reconning Leech Maximo and his group at the Well of Sparks, and the other with Twitch leading all the Terrans and Mirage through the Energon sandstorm back to McAdams to give the Energon they got from the refinery to Optimus and the other Autobots. For now though, I think I'm going to focus on Robbie's story because that's kind of leads into what happens towards the end of Twitch's story, even though they're kind of happening at the same time. So with Robbie's story, they finally make it to the Well of Sparks, where he, Alita, Megatron, and Bumblebee are all surveying or reconning, doing scouting on Leech Maximo at the Well of Sparks, where they're on top of a giant cliff overlooking the whole well. And over there we see Leech Maximo hovering in front of the well alongside Soundwave, Hot Rod, and all the Soundwave's cassettes. It's at this point where Leech Maximo takes out both the Emberstone and the Enigma of Combination from his chest, and I was correct in assuming that the artifact that we saw in the trailer for EarthSpark Season 4 that Leech Maximo was holding with the Emberstone was in fact the Enigma of Combination. It looks very similar to how it appears in the IEW comics, especially. That's where I'm most reminded of it, but it does have sort of its own unique EarthSpark design to it, which I do appreciate. It's at this time as well that we start to slowly see the cracks growing in Hot Rod's devotion to Leech Maximo. We saw this actually a bit earlier where Hot Rod was overlooking Soundwave, Swindle, and all the other Decepticons battling Twitch and Thrash's teams before Thrash, Dot, and Alex got kidnapped by them all, where Leech Maximo started to try and like doubt Hot Rod's commitment to his cause by claiming that perhaps maybe it was him that ended up giving Mirage some of the Energon that he ended up stealing, and proposes that maybe to punish Hot Rod, some of his own private Energon reserve should be taken from to make up for the Energon that Mirage stole. And that clearly annoyed Hot Rod back then, and we see it sort of happen here now where Leech Maximo quote-unquote awards, or rewards, I should say, Hot Rod and Soundwave by just throwing a single patch of Energon to both each of them as he starts to merge the Emberstone and Enigma combination together. However, as he's about to do this, of course, Robbie just can't sit still and let this happen. He can't lose his precious Emberstone. So what does he do? Well, when Bumblebee, Alita, and Megatron are looking, Robbie decides to go slide down the cliff in his exosuit and just full-on head charge Leech Maximo and the rest of the Decepticons and Hot Rod, demanding that they give him the Emberstone back. Like, Robbie, dude, I get it, though. I get that you're struggling with your addiction problems, but buddy, this isn't it. So of course this goes about as well as you'd expect. Robbie does not have a plan at all. He's just gonna go and try and attack Leech Maximo, and he effortlessly takes care of Robbie by throwing one of his darts at Robbie's exosuit, and it hits it dead on, destroying the little glass cockpit that Robbie's inside, while also disabling the whole exosuit immediately. And now I know a lot of people, and absolutely a lot of people, have a problem with this and saying that, oh, Robbie's so stupid here, he ruins everything, it's all his fault. So now I'm gonna say something, I'm gonna go off on a little rant here, because again, I think people just don't understand Robbie's character and his need to constantly be validated through the use of his powers. When you are addicted to something, you feel like you can't live without it. That if it's taken away from you, even if there's a slight chance of it coming back, you will do whatever it takes to get that back. So I'm gonna get a little personal here, and again, I mentioned this in the beginning of this video, but a little trigger warning in case anyone has a problem with alcoholism. Last year, after my dad passed away, sadly, I had quite a problematic connection to alcohol, where I was a bit of an alcoholic throughout my time, short in the months and year after my dad passed away. I tried to use it as a coping mechanism to cope with my father's death, and also deal with the guilt that I felt like my dad died thinking I hated him after an argument we had shortly before he passed away. I felt it was my fault, and I just didn't like what that made me become. So it was after a year that's where, with help from my family and others close to me, I decided to stop drinking at the time and be more responsible and find healthier coping mechanisms with grief and pain that I went through. And a lot of the feelings that I felt towards alcohol in those first few months of not drinking, that is very much so how Robbie acts in this episode, that he is so determined. Whenever there's a mention of the Emberstone or a mention of, or he sees it, he wants to get it back because he was so addicted to using the Emberstone and it's the prime power he got from it over the past 2 years of using it to fight Quintessons, Starscream. He believed he was a hero and a celebrity only because of the powers he got from the Cybersleeve. So of course he's gonna want that back because he wants that feeling of being a hero back. He truly thinks that he's not a hero as long as if he doesn't have the Cybersleeve. And I think that's a very important thing to remember. Addiction makes people do very stupid and very bad things. And I don't think that's a slight on the writers for making Robbie act this way. I think, in fact, the writers should be praised for this, that they're actually accurately portraying addiction in that regard. So, and I think Cindy and Michaela's performance as Robbie in this episode and the last one was very well in further showing off that addiction. So, despite what people say, I just think you guys don't get it. So, kudos to the EarthSpark team for making, in my opinion, a very accurate depiction of addiction in my regards. I forgot to briefly mention it, but the scene after this where Leech Maximo successfully merges the Emberstone with the Enigma combination to put together his Web of Worlds plan, the animation of here is absolutely beautiful, and EarthSpark has always been really pretty with their background animations and just large-scale stuff from when we saw Terratronus reawaken at the end of Season 2, or even when Terratronus battles the Quintesson Judge's ship at the Season 3 finale. Seeing here when Leech Maximo merges together the Emberstone and the Enigma combination, and then we see all of these giant, like, techno-organic tendrils or cables sprout out of Cybertron's Earth, and then go starting to spread over to other planets throughout the galaxy and sort of corrupting them, turning them into giant reserves of energon. It's absolutely breathtaking. It's breathtaking in like a horrifying way, where the whole sky turns pink at this point because all the planets are being full of energon now, and all Robbie can do is just look in horror, believing that he screwed up. They've all lost because of the fact that Robbie couldn't just let it go and let Leech have the Emberstone. He had to go and be the hero and try to get it back because he's so addicted to it, and it just didn't work. And again, this is like literally the Moltos probably at the lowest they've been since Mandroid kidnapped them all at the end of Season 1 to try and put together his plan. And I like that sort of callback to Mandroid's fight in the end of Season 1 here. Though, of course, Alita, Megatron, and Bumblebee head down after Robbie gets defeated by Leech Maximo to try and save him. But, of course, with how drained they already are of energon from Cybertron constantly draining them, they're no match for Hot Rod and Soundwave, who easily dispatch them as well and subdue them. Though it's at this point Leech Maximo demands from all of them to know where Optimus and the rest of the Autobots are hiding. And while Megatron, Alita, and Bumblebee say that they'll never tell him, Leech Maximo says he doesn't need them to tell him, as he can just force the answer from them. So with that, Leech Maximo opens up his chest and pulls out a giant staff that should not fit inside him, but I assume he's got some sort of built-in like black hole pocket dimension inside his chest, that he just pulls this giant spear that, oddly enough, the head of it looks like a Quintesson's head. He pulls that out of his chest and slams it into the ground. That causes all these white ethereal tendrils to spurt out from the staff, and they go straight into Robbie's head, probing his mind for the location of Optimus and the rest of the Autobots, where he discovers through Robbie's mind that that Optimus is located at McAdams. And this is honestly such a scary scene. The way all the tendrils sort of look like they almost burrow into Robbie's head. Robbie literally seizes up, his whole eyes go white, and he has this whole shocked, frozen expression of horror on his face as Leech Maximo probes Robbie's mind for information. It's genuinely uncomfortable and scary, and I dig that they're actually going this far to show how much of an uncomfortable situation it is for for Robbie, and as well as Megatron, Alita, and Bumblebee here. And even Megatron tries to save Robbie from Leech, but of course Soundwave is easy to push him back down considering how weak he is. So with the information on where Optimus is located now secured, he has Hot Rod and Soundwave in prison. Robbie Lita, Megatron, and Bumblebee, and after that summons the rest of the Decepticons, including Scorponok, Swindle, and so on, to raid on McAdams to try and find Optimus to get the Matrix of leadership from him. Meanwhile, with Twitch's story, we see her, the rest of the Terrans, and Mirage navigating through the Energon sandstorm with all the patches of Energon they've collected from the refinery. They're struggling to get through the storm because it's nearly impossible to tell where they're going. Mirage, and I believe Mirage and Nightshade mentioned that they should try and find shelter and wait for the sandstorm to die down, but Twitch says that they can't wait anymore because Optimus and the rest of the Autobots need their help, and that they just gotta push through the storm until they get back to McAdams. Once again, further showing just how much Twitch is obsessed with making sure that she actually gets a win for once. She wants to prove to not only the Autobots and her other Terrans, she wants to prove to herself that she can actually be a good leader and succeed at something for once after the string of failures she has. But just like as we've seen with her stressing out and putting more pressure on herself and panicking with these situations, that only causes more problems. So as she struggles through the sandstorm, we cut back to McAdams where Mo is taking care of the comatose Wheeljack and the almost comatose Optimus, where she ends up seeing Nightshade, Jawbreaker, and Mirage all coming back, where she's happy to see them, though notices that neither Twitch nor the Energon patches are with them, and that's when Nightshade explains to her that Twitch is still out there, that she got separated from them, and that she still has the Energon. So of course, they're relying on Twitch now to get back to the McAdams, and this is where I think we get, honestly, a really great scene, and of course, it happens when Twitch is actively at her lowest point, probably in this entire, season, in my opinion. Maybe even the whole series, besides when Bumblebee went missing back in Season 1. We then cut back to Twitch still navigating the Energon sandstorm while Leech Maximo and his group are heading towards McAdams to try and get Optimus's Matrix, and Twitch is absolutely at rock bottom at this point. She's struggling to get through, trying to push herself forward and motivate herself, saying that all the Autobots and Megatron need her help, but she just struggles so hard. The wind of the sandstorm is just pushing her back too much, to the point where at first she tries to transform into her drone alt mode to push forward through that, but even then the sandstorm is just too strong for her. So at this point, to avoid herself from getting blown back completely, she grabs her wing blades and just digs them into the ground to try and keep herself steady, but then she loses one of her wing blades flying behind her. At this point, she just breaks down completely, where she calls herself a failure and that she can't save anyone at this point. So just as a large piece of debris is about to come and knock her out, she suddenly wakes up to a sight that completely surprises her, and that is the time seems to have completely frozen around Twitch, where she is able to move all the particles in the sandstorm without it blowing in her face. So the whole sandstorm is frozen, but she isn't. So as she stands up, a bright green light appears behind Twitch, and it is none other than Quintus Prime himself, making his first actual physical appearance since the Season 1 finale, where he briefly appeared when Robbie and Mo rebuilt the Ember Stone to revive all the Cybertronians on Earth. So it's at this point Twitch is at first shocked to see Quintus Prime, but then actually lectures or scolds him, saying that oh, you shouldn't have made me your legacy of hope and all that, because I'm not cut out to be a leader. I'm horrible, I make all the wrong decisions, and I just can't do this. And I absolutely love this conversation that Quintus Prime has with Twitch. Easily one of the many highlights of Legacy of Hope, and it's where Quintus essentially explains to Twitch that he never wanted Twitch to be the leader of the Terrans, or just put all the pressure of being a leader on herself. He literally says, "Oh, I never wanted you to have all of these pressures of leadership on you. All of these are self-imposed." She then complains to Quintus further about saying that she's not cut out to be a leader. You're wasting your time talking to me. I'm not the one that you should be giving this big hopeful speech to. You should be giving it to Thrash, because he's clearly a better leader than me. And I absolutely love how Quintus responds to it. It's great to hear Clancy Brown back as Quintus Prime again for this final season, since we haven't heard him since Season 1, where Quintus tells Twitch this big burden that Twitch feels that she has to carry since she is technically the oldest Terran, she believes she should be the leader of all of them in that regard. Quintus says that that's all on her. She's been doing this all to herself. It's all self-imposed, and that he never wanted that for her. All he wanted for Twitch, as well as the rest of the Terrans, is to just live life as they want, to essentially be themselves. And I just love more so here how Twitch responds to that, where she still doesn't like how she feels about herself. She just says, well, I'm not sure I like even who I am. I don't even know what I want to be at this point. And it just shows, again, Catherine Kavard does a great job here, really expressing to Quintus and by extension the audience just how little Twitch thinks of herself in this moment. She truly feels she's like a failure, that she's going to amount to nothing. After failing not only to stop Mandroid back in Season 1 and this season, she failed to stop Starscream in Season 2. Nightshade and Jawbreaker got frozen by him, so it was up to Thrash and Hashtag to stop Starscream. And then she nearly died fighting the Quintessons, so Thrash had to cybersync with Spitfire instead. And now here, she can't even get the Energon back to the Autobots when they needed most. So, of course, Twitch is going to feel like a failure where I think that's actually a really cool way to sort of retroactively make like a justification for why Twitch has failed every single final fight in this series. I complained a lot back in like Season 3, for instance, when Twitch was out of commission, but the fact that they weaved that into the major plot of this episode, it's really, really cool to see that, yes, like, turns out the EarthSpark team actually did have a plan with this, that they wanted to basically show that Twitch feels like she's an utter failure with how much she's been losing every single big fight in EarthSpark. And I like that Quintus tries to basically tell Twitch that, like, you were never supposed to, like, feel bad about losing every single fight. All I need from you is to just be yourself. And then Twitch still feels that she's not that because she doesn't even like herself. So at this point, when she starts to question who she truly is at this point, Quintus tries to reassure Twitch by saying that it's normal for various living beings to question their existence and all that. It's what makes them, like, quote, for not his words, but just to make understand more, it's just what makes people more human in that regard, I should say, or just makes them more alive, I should say, properly. So, and he says, all that's, like, you need to do, you don't need to, like, be the best, you don't need to be this perfect leader who can do no wrong, it's okay to fail, all you just gotta do is trust in yourself that what you are doing is right and that it will work no matter what. That is what he wants her to do, to just truly have faith in herself. And that's something we've seen Twitch struggle with a lot. She struggled with believing in herself that she and her siblings could be ready for anything back in Season 1 security protocols. She doubted herself that she would be able to find the perfect gift for Mother's Day for Dot, and she would have to go to Robbie to tell the proper gift. Several times throughout EarthSpark, we've seen a lot of the problems that Twitch has been in. She's kind of caused them for herself because she doubts her own capabilities. And again, as someone who also, like Twitch, often doubts themselves and therefore creates a lot of problems because of that doubt, I think, again, this is a great job of characterizing Twitch's perfection syndrome and, like, anxiety. I really think it's really good writing on Greg Wiseman, Ian Bush, and Dale Malinowski's parts. And I just love it. It's really, really good here. And Twitch asks for a clarification again that she just needs to believe in herself. And Quintus responds to that essentially with yes, that all she needs to do is believe in herself, that she doesn't need to physically and actually be a strong, perfect leader that everyone can count on and that can never fail. All Quintus wants Twitch to do is to just believe that she is that perfect leader. If she has that trust in herself and truly believes in everything that she thinks is right, then that is perfectly okay with Quintus, and that is what true strength is. It's not actually being strong, it's believing that you are strong. And I really like that message. So with that, Quintus finally leaves Twitch, but the time is still frozen, but the Energon sandstorm is cleared mostly, where it reveals to Twitch that she is right on the edge of the storm, right in front of McAdams, but so is also Leech Maximo and all the other Decepticons and Hot Rod ready to invade it as well. So with enough time now, Twitch runs in to the McAdams when the storm is just about to clear up to warn the rest of the Autobots and Terrans about Leech Maximo coming in. So Twitch then arrives at McAdams just as Optimus is about to pass out from Energon loss, giving 2 patches to both him and Wheeljack, and warns them about Leech Maximo coming in immediately. So literally they only have a few seconds to hide when Hot Rod and the rest of the Decepticons end up invading McAdams looking for them, though at this point Optimus and the rest of the Terrans have managed to take shelter and hide inside of McAdams away from them. So as all the Decepticons and Hot Rod try to look for them, that is when Optimus jumps down from the ceiling to attack Swindle and Hot Rod. And I actually really like this fight that Optimus and Hot Rod have briefly, where Hot Rod is blocking one of Optimus's axes and pleads with him not to stop fighting and just give up the Matrix so that they can heal Cybertron. And Optimus is completely baffled by this, saying that there's no reason why Hot Rod should be working with Leech Maximo, and that it's still not too late for him to change sides and for them to work together to take down Leech Maximo and find another way to revive Cybertron. However, Hot Rod is having none of it. He tells Optimus that he didn't want to work with Leech Maximo either, but he was here and willing to provide a way to save Cybertron, even if it was to go and destroy a bunch of other worlds to do that. He stresses to Optimus that he was here for Cybertron, but you, as in Optimus, weren't. So why should I ever follow you when you weren't even here to help us when we needed it the most? And I really like this idea that EarthSpark is going for with Hot Rod feeling almost betrayed by Optimus in that regards, because rightfully so, Optimus left Hot Rod and presumably all the other Autobots like Mirage and Prowl on Cybertron for nearly 20 years to presumably die on Cybertron when he destroyed the space bridge. He was doing it, of course, to stop the Decepticons from using the Allspark, but by doing so, he essentially damned all the Cybertronians to a slow death because to them, they believed the Allspark was destroyed. And I was hoping that genuinely we would see Autobots on Cybertron that were like betrayed by Optimus, or felt betrayed at least, because of Optimus' decision. And I'm glad that's manifesting here in Hot Rod's character. And again, I mentioned it before in the last episode, I really still don't like Hot Rod's voice because I don't think it really fits his character. But I do think Eric Bauza definitely gives a good performance here in showing just his betrayal and frustration towards Optimus. Even if it's not how I imagine Hot Rod sounding, it definitely comes across that Hot Rod is frustrated and angry with Optimus, which I really do like. However, there's not much more time for Optimus and Hot Rod to argue, as a big explosion by Mirage forces Mirage and Mo to fight Hot Rod now, where Mirage boxes in Hot Rod by surrounding him with a bunch of his holograms, and therefore that gives Mo enough time to start beating up Hot Rod. I absolutely love, there's this funny moment where Mo almost has Hot Rod a chokehold, like chastising him for betraying them and taking their Cybersleeves, and Hot Rod tries to explain himself, saying he never wanted to hurt her or her brother, though Mo isn't having enough of it. And there's this moment, I'm sure Emperor Kumquat's going to mention it in a video he'll be making soon on EarthSpark, but Mo just so gingerly grabs like the side of Hot Rod's like pecs on the left side of him. It's such like a small gentle touch, and then she just repeatedly uses like her left fist to punch Hot Rod repeatedly in the chest to knock him down. And it looks like almost like the Hulkbuster suit Iron Man used in Avengers Age of Ultron, the one he used to like beat up Hulk, where he's like the go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep ep scene. It's like she's just punching Hot Rod repeatedly in the chest, and then gives one final punch to him in the face, knocking him down, saying that like that was for her brother for taking away his Cybersleeve and hurting him as well. Though it's at this point, though, Mirage actually jumps in front of Mo, trying to get her to stop him from beating up Hot Rod too much, because this is when Mirage actually reveals to Mo that Hot Rod has actually been an inside man of sorts for him, in that he's been somewhat helping the him and the rest of the I assume renegade Autobots on Cybertron by giving them occasional energon from Leech Maximo's personal supply. He even also explains to Robbie and Mo that he was the one who told Mirage to go to the space bridge in Praxis and pick up Robbie and Mo because he knew they'd be in danger. So Mo is totally shocked by this when Hot Rod once again tries to stress to her, and that again he never wanted to hurt Robbie and Mo. All he wanted was the Cybersleeves and then just leave Robbie and Mo on Earth. But with the two of them constantly getting in the way and fighting him, it makes it harder and harder for him to defend them both from Leech Maximo. But unfortunately he can't do that anymore, as Leech Maximo then shows up just as Scorponok seems to restrain Optimus. Even though Mo manages to defeat Hot Rod, the rest of the Terrans and Autobots are quickly subdued by the rest of Leech Maximo's forces, just as Leech himself walks in to come face to face with Optimus. So with everyone surrounding Optimus and the rest of the Moltos and Autobots, Leech approaches Optimus and just for no reason at all pulls off his cloak and reveals his full body. And oh my god, Leech, your body is absurd with that waist. What do you need that tiny waist for, sir? I'm getting off track here, but again, having the full look here of Leech Maximo's design is honestly really cool. I dig it as far as how unique it is compared to other Leech Maximos. Usually like in IDW and even TF1, Leech Maximo looks a lot more like Loki from Marvel, but to have this Leech Maximo look so much more different, I like that he almost has sort of a Quintesson feel to him, especially when Leech Maximo's mask shifts back as well and we get to see his mouth. His mouth even looks a lot more like MCU Ultron, and a lot of people have been saying that. I definitely see the comparison here, but I really dig EarthSpark Leech Maximo's design. So with that, Leech Maximo reaches into his chest again. Instead of pulling out a spear, though, he pulls out this giant, like, laser cannon, which some people are claiming is actually the Requiem Blaster, another Prime artifact, but from what I've been able to look up with other versions of the Requiem Blaster, it doesn't necessarily look like it. But again, considering Leech Maximo's whole thing in EarthSpark is that he takes random Prime artifacts, it could very well be EarthSpark's incarnation of the Requiem Blaster. But anyway, Leech aims this gun at Optimus, telling him to give up the Matrix now so that he can complete his plan to bend every other planet in the world to his will, though Optimus refuses to give it. However, when instead Leech Maximo aims his gun at Mo and all the other Terrans, threatening to kill them if Optimus is near the Matrix, this time he does agree to do it and slowly opens his chest, and Leech Maximo leans in, getting ready to take the Matrix, only to discover the Matrix has been completely gone. Optimus's chest is completely empty, and Optimus even gives a little, like, taunting smirk at Leech, realizing that he outplayed him. So Leech just gets totally frustrated at this and demands to know where the Matrix has been taken, and that's when we cut to Twitch, who has successfully snuck in out of McAdams with the Matrix of Leadership wrapped around her neck in this little chain, and it seems to supercharge Twitch, giving her this blue glow, very similar to various Autobots in Transformers Cyberverse when they got supercharged by the Allspark and they get that little Energon blue glow. It reminds me a lot of that, and Twitch is able to make her way all the way back to Leech Maximo's base in record time to free Thrash, Robbie, and everyone else who got captured. And honestly, when I saw this, I got so hyped thinking that we were finally going to get Twitch Prime in this episode. In case you'll remember, I mentioned this back in my review of Season 1 towards the very end, where I mentioned that, oh, I really think it would be so cool if by the end of Season 1, by the end of EarthSpark, Twitch became a Prime, because I think it was really setting up that Twitch would become one. And when I saw Twitch here get powered up by the Matrix, I'm thinking, oh my god, are we actually going to see Twitch become like an honorary Prime, if even just for a little bit? I mean, you could technically say that Twitch did become a Prime for the little bit she did have the Matrix, but just EarthSpark couldn't create a whole brand new model for her just to have with the Matrix. They just gave her like the Energon, like super powered like lines over her body to show that she's been supercharged by the Matrix. It could have been, but I don't know, but I like that little detail. As Twitch makes her way to Leech Maximo's base in an effort to free Robbie, Bumblebee, and everyone else captured by Leech earlier, we see Leech back in McAdams with everyone else in the Decepticons and orders Hot Rod to go ahead and find Twitch, knowing that she has the Matrix. And Hot Rod says, though, to do this, he and the other Decepticons are still rather weak because Cybertron's actively draining them of Energon as well, and asked Leech for more Energon. And this is officially Hot Rod's turning point now, where Leech gets more frustrated with Hot Rod, showing him an Energon patch, but then crushing it in his hands, expecting him to complete the job before he can get his Energon. And this finally gets Hot Rod to snap and switch sides back to the Autobots, where he briefly gets a small glance over at Mo, who almost seems to kind of, like, tries to convince him to do the right thing and betray him to join the Autobots, and that's when Hot Rod makes his move. So, at this point, Hot Rod finally sees the error of his ways and turns to the rest of the Decepticons, trying to convince them all to not follow Leech Maximo anymore if he's just going to bully them into doing what he wants without giving them Energon properly. Though Leech isn't having any of this and grabs Hot Rod by the face, slamming him down into the ground, and orders the rest of Decepticons to arrest him as well as all the other Terrans and send them all back to base as well. Once Twitch arrives at Leech Maximo's base, we get what I believe is arguably one of the most heartfelt scenes in this entire finale episode. So we cut to the inside of Robbie, Thrash, Dot, Alex, Prowl, Alita, and Megatron's cell, where Breakdown is on guard duty, guarding them all. Even Bumblebee tries to tease Breakdown that he's on babysitting duty, and Breakdown tries to, like, insult B back, but not before Twitch hits Breakdown one of those, like, EMP, like, sound waves that she was trying to use to destroy the mind control chip on Starscream, I should say, back in episode 1. So with Breakdown knocked out, Twitch then arrives and disables the force fields, giving the remaining Energon patches she took from the refinery to Prowl, Alita, and Megatron, and they're all ready to go and head out now. Though at this point, before they all go to help Optimus, suddenly Twitch stops them, saying that she can feel the Matrix as if it's almost talking to her at this point. She mentions that someone close by is in pain and they need to go help whoever it is. Though, at this point, of course, Thrash, considering how much of a failure Twitch has been throughout this episode, has been with her choices, Thrash isn't really ready to believe in Twitch, so he believes that Twitch is going to lead them all in a wild goose chase into another ambush, citing how the last time she had a feeling with the Dead Zone that had led her team into being ambushed by all Decepticons. So, and however, I absolutely really love how this conversation goes, where instead of Twitch not listening to Thrash and arguing with him, saying that, like, hey, I know what I'm doing this time, she actually opens up to Thrash and agrees with him, where she says, okay, well, if you believe that we should go help Optimus instead, you can go ahead and lead some of like a team of your own to go help Optimus, while I'll go see what the Matrix wants me to do. And I love how Thrash is taken aback by this, not expecting this response at all from Twitch, where he starts to say like, oh, see, this is what I'm talking about, you never listen to me, and why are you always challenging my choices and all that? But then he stops himself as he realizes that Twitch actually is letting him do this, so he's confused, asking Twitch why she's doing this. And this conversation that Twitch and Thrash have to each other, where they sort of make amends after how they've treated each other the past 2 episodes, is really, really sweet. Again, one of the best scenes that Catherine Gavari and Zena Robinson have throughout this entire show as Twitch and Thrash, in my opinion. So it starts off with Twitch apologizing to Thrash for making him believe that he feels like she's never listening to him. She promises that she's going to work on that and respect Thrash's plans and recommendations more. Though at the same time, though, she asks Thrash why it felt like he was always challenging her leadership, because to her, it felt like that he was trying to replace her as leader. And at that point, Thrash responds by saying that that was never his intention. He didn't want to replace Twitch as a leader. All he wanted to do was to take off some of the stress that she was feeling on her own self-imposed need to be a perfect leader by taking on some more stressful tasks. And while then Thrash does admit he did get carried away with doing a lot of these tasks, as we saw from being praised by Optimus, he clearly let that go to his head and wanted to be more of a leader because he loved that praise and validation from Optimus and everyone else. He does admit, though, to Twitch here that he did go too far and that he's sorry for that he's going to work on not being as much of a control freak in response to praise as Twitch was. So he finishes the conversation by mentioning that he and the rest of his siblings know that Twitch is a great leader and doing the best she can. They all respect her as a leader and trust her. However, what he needs and the rest of his siblings need from her in return is to believe in herself as much as they believe in her, echoing the words Quintus said to her earlier about that trust, believing in yourself is what makes you strong, not just being physically strong. And I really, really like this, that it brings a nice little tight bow, in my opinion, to Twitch and Thrash's like conflict throughout this episode and the previous one with Hometown Heroes. That in here, I feel like Twitch and Thrash are finally really understanding each other, that after having this deep conversation, Twitch understands that she doesn't need to be a perfect leader. She can make mistakes and it's okay. All she needs to do is to not doubt herself. She just has to believe that what she's doing is right, and if she fails, it's okay, because she has the rest of her family to lean on for support. They can help her as long as she just lets them help her. We saw this again back in Season 3, Episode 3, The Great Escape, where she, again, was a control freak in making sure all the Terrans did their minigames the way she wanted them to do it. And I really, really like that. So after that, Twitch and Thrash finally make up and are on good terms again now. And even Megatron gives a little praise to Twitch, saying how happy he is to finally see her back to normal again. Once again, calling her Little Bird, as he always has throughout this entire show, which I love that was Megatron's little nickname for Twitch this entire time. And then in return, Twitch thanks Megatron for never giving up on her, which Megatron says that family never gives up on each other. And this comment here where Megatron truly considers himself family to Twitch and the rest of the Moltos, it's so sweet, but then it makes what happens at the end of this episode hurt even more. But I'm gonna wait until we get to the end of this episode to deal with that. So with this renewed purpose, the Twitch and Thrash split up again into 2 teams. This time Twitch goes with Megatron, Bumblebee, Dot, Alex, and Robbie to go find whatever the Matrix is bringing her towards. Meanwhile, Thrash works with Alita and Prowl to go save Optimus and his group from Leech Maximo. At this point, we're going to follow Twitch's story for now, with her, Dot, Alex, Robbie, Megatron, and Bumblebee all heading down deeper into Leech Maximo's base to try and figure out what this person that the Matrix is leading Twitch to is. And surprise, surprise, when they get into this giant, like, underground, like, cell, like, lair almost under Leech Maximo's headquarters, inside this giant, like, portal, almost mini space bridge, is none other than the Allspark itself. Turning out, it did make it back to Cybertron when Optimus and Megatron threw it into the space bridge back in Season 1's flashback episode. But apparently Leech Maximo's just hid it under here in his base the entire time and has stabbed one of his darts into it, therefore poisoning the Allspark and preventing it from producing energon to power the entire planet. So instead, the Allspark is relying on the energon of other Cybertronians on Cybertron, where at this point, with how close Megatron and Bumblebee are to the Allspark, it just starts draining their energon at a much more rapid pace, where both of them start collapsing to their knees, unable to move to get close enough to the Allspark to remove Leech's dart from it. Even Robbie's exosuit isn't even able to move with how fast the energon is draining at this point. Though, at this point, though, it seems like Breakdown of all people is going to be the one to save the day, because he comes in out of nowhere behind everyone in awe of seeing the Allspark there, in disbelief as well, because according to him, Leech Maximo told him and the rest of the Decepticons and Hot Rod that the Allspark was destroyed by Optimus and Megatron, as we heard from Leech Maximo earlier on in the episode when he and Hot Rod were fighting. So Breakdown is confused by this, but is gonna try to make things right as he tries to push forward to get the dart out himself. However, just like Bumblebee and Megatron, he's just way too weak to do it at this point, falling to his knees as well behind B. And I absolutely love, it's so sweet what Bumblebee says here, where Bumblebee is urging Breakdown not to do it because it's just too dangerous, and he even says to him, "I can't lose you, brother." Like, oh my god, even when after the big breakup that he and Breakdown had back in the start of Season 3, Bumblebee can't bring himself to hate Breakdown even forever. He cares about him so much, and whether that's as friends, brothers, even romantic partners, I'll let you be the judge of that, but me as a big Breakbeat fan, this made me so happy to see that Bumblebee still truly cares about, maybe even loves Breakdown, and is not willing to let Breakdown presumably sacrifice himself just so Cybertron can be restored. I just love that so much, and I'm so glad we got these few little moments with Bumblebee and Breakdown in this finale episode. So with everyone else incapacitated, that leaves Robbie to be the only one who can save the day. So with the last few bits of energy on his exosuit, he forces the suit to get close enough to the Allspark for him to jump out of the suit and start climbing on top of the Allspark. Even as Dot and Alex beg Robbie not to go near the Allspark, he manages to climb on top of it and, with the last of his strength, pull out the dart, seemingly with no issue. And I'll be honest, this kind of bothers me a bit, because while it's a cool scene of Robbie pulling out the Leech's dart out of the Allspark to cure and purify the Allspark, Robbie is a normal 14, almost 15-year-old boy at this point. How is he able to pull that right out of a giant cube like the Allspark without a Cybersleeve? I could excuse him helping that giant station wagon down to the ground when it fell off the highway from Megatron's missile in the last episode, but here Robbie doesn't have any cyber suit or exosuit. He's just using his normal physical strength to pull this dart out of it, and I don't know, to me that's just a little bit unrealistic, but, you know, I'll chalk it up to being a kid's show. Robbie and Mo were able to destroy all Mandroid's cameras on his big castle mech back in Season 1, Episodes 9 and 10, without a cyber sleeve, so who am I to argue that here? It's just like one scene, I'm not going to really complain about it too much. But the second Robbie pulls out the dart, the whole room flashes white, and everything just takes on a much more blue, like a lively tone in it, where Cybertron seems to start to slowly revive itself as Robbie stands triumphantly over the Allspark holding the dart. And as we can see, the Allspark immediately refills Bumblebee, Breakdown, and Megatron at this point, refilling them all their energon, as well as Robbie's cyber suits, or exosuit I should say. And then that leads us to, now we are in the final climax of this scene. And this climax starts back at McAdams, where we see Leech Maximo absolutely pounding Optimus to death. We just see him punching and stomping on Optimus repeatedly, super pissed at him for tricking him with giving Twitch the matrix of leadership at this point. And at this point, he's beatdown of Optimus is even unsettling Swindle and the other Decepticons, where Swindle even tries to gently nudge Leech, like, hey, okay, you got Optimus, can we go, maybe get the Matrix back from Twitch now? But no, Leech Maximo isn't having any of it. He's just so frustrated that his plans aren't going the way he wants, and he decides to take it a bit further and even try to kill Optimus by pressing the Star Saber against his chest again, just like he did in the beginning of this episode, where he puts it into his chest and seemingly kills Optimus by draining all of the energon from his body into the Star Saber. I should also mention here, when Leech Maximo is beating up Optimus, he's literally beating him to near death, yet his body looks completely fine the entire time this happens. He doesn't have a single scratch or, like, cut on his body as Leech is beating up Optimus, and that bothers me because we've seen plenty instances of battle damage throughout EarthSpark already at this point. In Season 1's finale, when Twitch and Thrash were nearly killed by Mandroid, we saw how badly damaged their bodies were at that point. Then in Season 3, when Twitch was nearly killed by the Quintessons, her body was messed up then as well. But here, when Leech is literally beating Optimus to death, I'd argue worse than when Tarn beat up Optimus at the end of Cyberverse, we see nothing? I don't know, that's just a little disappointing to me. Like, I would have liked to show, like, maybe Optimus's mask is broken off, give, like, one of his windshields is cracked open, or, like, his arms are, like, dented inwards. Give us something, like, you could even do, like, a minor thing, like a few scratches. The fact that they've shown battle damage for EarthSpark in previous seasons, yet not here, is very, very odd in my opinion. However, Optimus doesn't stay dead for long, though, if he was even dead to start with, as when Robbie successfully cures the Allspark, it revives not only him, but also refills all the other Decepticons and Autobots that are in Mechadam still already. So, as this happens, Optimus realizes that the Allspark is in fact still here on Cybertron, and that it must have gotten restored by Robbie and the other Moltos. So, with this revelation, Shockwave and the other Decepticons to realize, then this means Leech Maximo has been lying to them all the whole time, and that Optimus didn't actually destroy the Allspark, and it was actually Leech Maximo who was poisoning the Allspark just so he had an excuse for everyone to follow him, while also putting his Web of Worlds plan into motion. So of course, all Decepticons are rightfully pissed at this, and they start opening fire on Leech Maximo, blasting him out of his own base into the surrounding wastelands of Mechadams. And at this point, all of the Decepticons just leave Leech Maximo, even as he begs them to stay with him, where even Swindle humorously says that, like, oh, I preferred it when Megatron and Starscream lied to us, and then they just go ahead and drive and fly off into the wilderness, never to be seen again. And that is unfortunately the last we see in EarthSpark of any of the Decepticons, with the exception of Breakdown. I will admit, I have a slight con here, because it just feels weird that they just sort of like get their revenge on Leech Maximo and then just go off on their own without even, like, letting Leech Maximo die. Like, even, like, if they didn't agree with Leech Maximo lying to them, surely they realize he, as one of, like, the most dangerous 13 primes, he's still a threat, right? Like, don't you think that they would stick around to help Optimus and the Autobots and Terrans defeat him? It just seems a little bit odd that they all just go and walk off, but, like, it is what it is. And I like that, though, that the final fight then does focus on the Autobots and Terrans battling Leech Maximo instead. But I would have liked to see that camaraderie like we saw back in the Season 1 finale, where all the Decepticons helped the Terrans defeat Mandroid. It would have been nice to see that, but sadly we don't. And that's another kind of lot to give to this episode. But overall, though, it doesn't impact it much in my opinion. I just wish the other Decepticons actually got to have a, like a good, like a more exciting ending. But at least they get to be alive on Cybertron doing who knows what at this point. So, again, with this being the final time we see the Decepticons, I'd like to give a big shout out to Nolan North as Swindle and Hardtop, Tiana Carmacho as Frenzy, Sean Kenan Reyes as Soundwave, and so on. They all, and as well as Nicole Dubucket, Skywork, and Nova Storm. They all did amazing jobs as these Decepticons throughout all of EarthSpark, and they should be proud of the work they did in it. But even with all the Decepticons having abandoned Leech Maximo, he's still not ready to give up without a fight, and uses the Star Saber to summon an army of Sparkless zombies towards Mechadams with the Energon inside of the Star Saber. However, it's at this point Optimus, Hot Rod, hashtag Jawbreaker, Nightshade, and Mo all get up ready to fight alongside Mirage, and then Prowl, Alita, and Thrash even come in to help as well, having finally arrived from Leech Maximo's base. And that kickstarts this fight, where we only have a little bit here of all this group of Autobots and Terrans battling all the Sparkless Autobots and Leech Maximo. And just as they're about to overwhelm them all, that is when Megatron, Twitch, and Robbie, Dot, and Alex come in with where Megatron is flying overhead from above with Dot and Alex inside of him, shooting down at a bunch of Sparkless, dropping missiles on them. Then we have Bumblebee and Breakdown come in, where Bumblebee right at the top of Breakdown, and Breakdown uses his turret to take out a bunch of Sparkless. I absolutely love this scene, having this big final fight with all of our Autobots, Terrans, and Breakdown, my beloved, all battling Leech Maximo. It's the final fight that I'm so glad that, unlike EarthSpark Season 1, where we had just only the Terrans battling Mandroid, or Season 2, where we just had Robbie, Mo, Thrash, and Hashtag battling Starscream, or Season 3, where it was really just Robbie, Thrash, and Spitfire battling the Judge, while Mo, Nightshade, Jawbreaker, Hashtag, and Aftermath synced with Terratronus. This time, we clearly have a real everyone is here moment with everyone fighting Leech Maximo. No one gets left out, I mean, besides all the Decepticons, but all the Autobots, at least, that are here on Cybertron do get to fight against Leech Maximo, and that just makes me very, very happy. So with all the Moltos, Terrans, Autobots, Megatron, and Breakdown all working together to take down all of Leech Maximo's Sparkless, they really just wipe the floor with all the Sparkless. And there are a lot of cool shots here where we have one involving Jawbreaker using his sledgehammer to create a giant shockwave that sends a bunch of Sparkless flying. We see one shot of Hashtag jumping over one Sparkless while taking a selfie with it. It's also really cool when Robbie and Twitch come into the fight, where Robbie, now no longer having his exosuit, actually instead uses a giant metal pole and then snaps it off against the Sparkless to create just two metal rods. He uses almost like Cali sticks to help Mo fight the Sparkless as well. Mo even gets to do a few wrestling moves inside her exosuit, as a nice little callback to her love of wrestling she said a lot back in Season 1. And then another favorite part of mine is towards the end of it, where Twitch is literally riding Thrash like a chariot almost, where she has her swing blades out, grinding them against the ground and cutting up a bunch of Sparkless that Thrash is driving around. And I absolutely love this. I wanted to always see that, where someone would ride Thrash and use like a weapon on top of him, like a sword or something. We saw that a little bit with Mo with her Cyber Blade, I think back in Season 2. But to see here Twitch doing it instead is so cool. She even gets to do a cool little Akira slide where she like drags her sword into the ground to sort of stop her and Thrash from sliding, and as she does a little Akira slide towards, I think, Alita, Optimus, and Prowl. It's such a cool shot. But after that, all the Autobots manage to defeat Leech's army of Sparkless, but that's when we get to the final fight in this, and oh boy, this last fight is a big one. So once all the Terrans celebrate managing to defeat all the Sparkless, alongside all the Autobots, Megatron, and Breakdown, that is when Leech Maximo comes running at them all with a Star Saber, demanding that Twitch gives them the Matrix of Leadership. Though, he's no match for them, as Breakdown just comes in out of nowhere and sideswipes Leech. Literally, his almost just sweeps his legs out, and Breakdown just taunts him a little. There's even a point where, if it's a split-second thing, it's very hard to miss, very easy to miss, I should say, but Breakdown is literally dabbing as he celebrates stunning Leech Maximo, and oh my god, EarthSpark never change, and the fact that you literally have Breakdown dab, it's so stupid, but it's a funny kind of stupid. I just love it at that point. But unfortunately, that's when it gets serious, because as Leech Maximo gets back up, he pulls out of his chest appears to be some sort of chakram almost, which he calls the Blades of Time, which is actually another canonical Prime artifact belonging to Vector Prime. And in this, Leech Maximo explains that the Blades of Time essentially will turn anyone who is hit into a loyal minion of his. Essentially, he plans to throw it at Breakdown, so therefore, if it hits him, it will basically regress him back into a true Decepticon at that point. So Leech Maximo throws the Blades of Time at Breakdown while he's still busy dabbing, and he's not able to dodge the blade. But just as it's about to hit him, Bumblebee jumps in front of Breakdown, shoving him out of the way, and seemingly getting killed by the blade as well. We just cut to black. There's a brief flash where it seems like the blades cut Bumblebee in half, and Breakdown looks over at Bumblebee, absolutely horrified, thinking that he just watched Bumblebee die. But instead, Bumblebee just gets up off the ground, and he's completely changed. He is now back in his classic form we saw all the way back in Season 1, Episode 16. And Bumblebee, though, despite being stabbed with the Blades of Time, he looks completely fine, other than the fact that he's in his classic form. However, the true damage of the Blades of Time is properly revealed when Bumblebee turns the Breakdown, and instead of meeting Breakdown with relief or joy, seeing that he's alive and that he was able to save him from the Blades of Time. Bumblebee is more so shocked and draws a gun on Breakdown instead, where at this point we finally learn what's happened, and it's that essentially with Bumblebee being hit by the Blades of Time, he has reverted back to how he was during the end days of the war, when he still had his Volkswagen Beetle alt mode. So that means, unfortunately, all of Bumblebee's experiences are pretty much gone in terms of what he's experienced at EarthSpark. He's lost all his memories of the Terrans, the Moltos, all his experiences with Breakdown. He just thinks Breakdown's just another Decepticon at this point that he needs to fight, and it's really, really sad to see this Bumblebee having forgotten in just a flash. No one even gets time to mourn it, but just Bumblebee just forgets everything. All his growth with Alex about learning to accept him as his fan, all the tough lessons he gave to Twitch and Thrash about trying to be true Transformers, that's all gone in an instant, and it really sets this, like, the stakes here now, like, oh god, like, if this happens to Bumblebee, what happens if, like, Optimus or someone gets hit with it? I know a lot of people are probably going to be saying, oh, this ruins EarthSpark because Bumblebee then just forgets everything that's happened throughout the course of EarthSpark. I understand where you guys are coming from, but based on how this episode ends, I don't think that that's what was going to happen. That they didn't want to just wipe the slate clean and just erase Bumblebee's memories, but we'll get back to that later. So at this point, instead, the fight then shifts over to now Optimus and Megatron battling Leech Maximo. Specifically, Leech goes towards Megatron because with the Blades of Time, he believes that Megatron will be a worthy ally to him as well, where he says, like, oh, I've heard that the old Megatron was such a feared, powerful tyrant, he would make a great ally. So he then tries to throw the Blades of Time at Megatron, hoping that it will turn him back into quote-unquote tyrant Megatron. And though Megatron is putting up a really good fight here, this scene literally had me on the edge of my seat because I was so scared, thinking like, oh my god, after it turned Bumblebee back into his classic form, I'm thinking like, oh my god, this is what they're doing. They're gonna make Megatron become a tyrant again. I'm not ready for this. I don't want to see Megatron become a bad guy again. Please don't do this to me, EarthSpark. And so, at this point, Megatron is just swinging his Energon flail around, battling Leech Maximo at the same time, trying to dodge the Blades of Time. And then at the same point, Optimus then jumps up to the top of McAdams, where he's fighting Leech now, where Leech is using the Star Saber to battle Optimus, while Optimus pulls out one of his Energon axes to fight Leech, though the two of them are evenly matched at this point, and the rest of the Terrans and Autobots can only just look on in hesitance, as they are too scared to like go ahead and try and help out in the fight because they don't want to get in the way at this point. And the choreography of this scene is really good. One of the best fights we've gotten in seasons 2 through 4 of EarthSpark, in my opinion, having Optimus and Megatron work together to try and defeat Leech Maximo. So it seems to be that they're both evenly matched, where Megatron's more so battling just the blades by themselves, while Optimus is battling Leech. Though eventually Leech does get the upper hand and manage to disarm Optimus, nearly kicking him off of McAdams, where he's hanging on by just a thread. And so at this point, Megatron has to make the tough call where he sees, he seems to push away the Blades of Time for just a moment. So with the blades seemingly out of the picture, he sees Optimus in danger from Leech Maximo and goes to run at Leech Maximo, trying to stop him from killing Optimus. But that's when Leech Maximo gets the upper hand on him. And it's at this point where before Megatron can even hit Leech Maximo once, Leech Maximo recalls the Blades of Time, and they slice through Megatron's back, coming out his front, and then just Leech grabs it, and Megatron just stands still, completely stunned, almost like you can watch the energy drain out of him in an instance, where he nearly collapses, leaning on Leech Maximo for support, but Leech Maximo then just phases through him, walking behind him for some reason. And at this point, Optimus helps himself back up, rushing over to Megatron, concerned for him, how the Blades Time are going to affect him. But Megatron is just, he doesn't say anything. He's not immediately Tyrant Megatron. He's not, unaffected either. He's just staring down at the ground, completely dumbstruck, almost like his whole brain is frozen, essentially. And it seems like no one knows if Megatron's really okay or not. But then, all of a sudden, Leech Maximo then turns around, pulling out the same blaster that he nearly threatened to kill Optimus with, and then takes aim at Megatron and fires at him. And with that, Leech Maximo actually kills Megatron. This scene, I was so dreading it to happen throughout this entire episode. When I was watching these two episodes for the first time, When he made it through Tometown Heroes without dying, I begged silently. I begged, please don't let Megatron go to Cybertron, because I have a very bad feeling that if he goes to Cybertron, he will die. I was so worried throughout this entire episode. There were so many times I'm thinking, oh, are Sparkless gonna kill Megatron? Is he gonna die saving Twitch or something? And then as soon as he pulled out the Blade of Time, I'm thinking like, oh my god, he's so gonna like become like a tyrant Megatron again, or he's gonna like, or something's gonna happen to him. And sure enough, here's what that's exactly what happens. Leech Maximo wastes no time and just point blank kills Megatron by shooting a hole straight through his chest. Not too unlike of when D16 actually killed Orion Pax accidentally at the end of TF1, nearly shot for shot in the way where you see this really like high contrast red frame. Almost reminds me of like something out of Dragon Ball, where you see the laser beam go straight through Megatron's back and out his chest, leaving just a giant gaping hole in his chest. Leech Maximo literally pulls a Kakyoin or Rengoku on Megatron. He literally kills Megatron like Piccolo killed Goku at the start of Dragon Ball Z. It literally destroyed me when I first watched this. I'm like, oh, you know those moments where you watch something and you know something horrible is going to happen, but you don't know when, and so when that horrible thing finally happens, you're just so deflated? That's literally how I felt here when Leech Maximo kills Megatron. But it hurts. It hurts so much knowing that Megatron went through all of this, everything that he went through throughout the entire 4 seasons, just to give his life for Optimus at the very end here. It hurt me so much watching Megatron die like this, but at the same time, I couldn't think of a more fitting death for EarthSpark Megatron. To die saving Optimus, his best friend, someone who I'd argue half the Transformers fandom believes he is genuinely in love with, that he was willing to abandon Decepticons, seek peace on Earth and Cybertron because he cared about Optimus that much. He was willing to sacrifice himself here just to save Optimus, and he did exactly that. He gives his life so that Optimus has a chance at living, and it is a really, really powerful death for Megatron, and a rather graphic one too. I wouldn't say it's as graphic as Megatron's death in Prime, when Bumblebee stabs him with a Dark Starsaber and you literally see all the Dark Energon staining the Starsaber as Megatron's body falls off the Starsaber. I still think that's like the most graphic, animated death a Megatron has had. But EarthSpark Megatron's death comes pretty close to that, and it just destroyed me again. Now, I'm going to do something here that I've never done before for any of my other EarthSpark reviews, and that is, you're about to see my original live reaction to Megatron's death in Transformers EarthSpark. So, I watched these episodes at roughly 3 in the morning with one of my best friends, Aseexor, who is a very, very talented artist. They have helped me a lot out with a bunch of EarthSpark projects where I have my own AO3 account writing a bunch of EarthSpark fanfics, and they've done a great job bringing art to those fics and bringing them to life. They made a lot of cool stuff that I am so glad to have them as a friend. We both love EarthSpark immensely, so we decided to go ahead and watch the final 2 episodes of EarthSpark together. And them being a huge Megatron fan, where I was more so of an Optimus fan, but I still loved EarthSpark Megatron, we were both floored by Megatron's death. So, without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and let this reaction play for itself right now.
No! I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry. No.
Oh no! Oh my god. Megatron! It's such a sad, like, brutal way for EarthSpark Megatron to go out, but at the same time, it's a very fitting one for him to give his life to Optimus and the Terrans, sacrifice himself so that they have a chance at defeating Leech Maximo. It's literally the perfect way for him to go out, as much as it hurts me. And with this being his death, I gotta give a shout out to Rory McCann. He played Megatron fantastically throughout all 4 seasons of EarthSpark. Easily one of my top 3 favorite characters in EarthSpark, alongside Breakdown and in a tie between Thrash and Jawbreaker. I love them all so much, alongside like Bumblebee and just so many others. But EarthSpark Megatron is easily one of my top 3 favorite Megatrons, alongside, I'd say, TF1 Megatron, IDW Megatron, and Prime Megatron, with IDW and Prime kind of being tied together. But Rory McCann has definitely cemented himself as like one of my top 3 favorite voice actors, at least for Megatron, alongside Brian Tyree Henry as TF1 Megatron, and Frank Welker as G1 and Prime Megatron. So, with that, yeah, just bravo, Rory McCann. You did a fantastic job as Megatron. all the way up until the end, so thank you for that. However, after Leech Maximo kills Megatron, the other Terrans and Autobots believe that Optimus died alongside with him, as he doesn't show up when Leech Maximo jumps down from the top of McAdams, demanding that Twitch gives him the Matrix lest anyone else dies. So at this point, Twitch seems hesitant to give Leech the Matrix, when all of a sudden it pulses to her as if it's like telling her something. So at this point then Twitch tells the rest of her team that she has a plan, and it's gonna seem crazy, but she just asks them to trust her. So with that, she rips the Matrix off her neck and throws it to Leech Maximo, believing that he can use it to bend all the Terrans to his will now. Though, just as Optimus and Megatron said earlier in this episode, that's not how the Matrix works. And with it, all of the Terrans and Autobots, plus Robbie and Mo, Dot and Alex, they all charge at Leech Maximo, doing this for Optimus and Megatron. And so we get easily the most satisfying beatdown in all of EarthSpark, and that is just everyone going to town on Leech Maximo. It's so satisfying after he killed Optimus and Megatron here, to see all the Terrans just basically run him like clockwork, essentially. You have Robbie and Mo beating down on him with their exosuit and their little metal rods that Robbie's using as Cali sticks. We have Nightshade swinging down on him with their wing blades. Hashtag even kicks and shoots at him a bit with her alt mode. Jawbreaker smashes him with his hammer a few times. And then finally, Thrash manages to throw his sidecar shield at Leech's face a few times. Even Twitch manages to get a few kicks and slices him with her swords. Though eventually it ends with Thrash throwing his shield at one of Leech Maximo's horns or antenna, where it dents one of them in, and Leech Maximo starts screaming in pain, and like electric sparks start to flash all over his body. That leads Thrash to tell Twitch that clearly there's something up with his antennas, and that's the key to defeating Leech Maximo, is to potentially take out his antennas. But even with this, all of the Terrans and Autobots gang up on Leech Maximo, they can't bring him to be brought to a standstill even for a moment. That is when, of course, Optimus comes in, and turns out he didn't get killed by Leech Maximo, but we do see when Leech killed Megatron, one of Optimus's arms ended up getting ripped off in the process. So immediately I'm having flashbacks to not only TF1, where D16 accidentally shot off one of Orion's arms when he killed him at the end of TF1, but also reminds me of Skybound Optimus, who infamously in the 3rd issue of it rips off one of his own arms to beat Skywarp in a fight, and is therefore without an arm for the majority of the comics until he gets Megatron's arm to replace it. So even with one arm, Optimus manages to beat up Leech Maximo even more, managing to knock him down by throwing his axe at Leech, who's forced to block it with his arm, one of his own arms, and catch it, dig it into his arm. And I love the absolute rage that's in Optimus's voice here as he tries to kill Leech Maximo, where he yells at him saying, "You destroyed our world and you killed my best friend, and now your time has come." And oh my god, Alan Tudyk performs this so well, having that utter rage in Optimus's voice, where he's so furious at him for not only trying to destroy Cybertron, but for also killing Megatron, as he says right here, his best friend, his brother, maybe even his lover, if you so are inclined as a Megop shipper like I am. Alan Tudyk does a great job of projecting that anger that Optimus has too here, where he just wants to literally chop off Leech Maximo's own arm. And shout out to Optimus for being able to do this with only one arm as well. He is going to town on Leech Maximo as sort of payback for him beating up Optimus earlier on this episode. But then with Leech subdued by Optimus, that allows Robbie, Mo, and Twitch to do the final blow, where the two of them ride on top of Twitch, each taking one of Twitch's wing blades, and use them to cut off Leech Maximo's horns or antenna. So with those two destroyed, that seems to actually destabilize Leech Maximo and trap him in some sort of void singularity of sorts, where his whole body starts to implode on itself. She starts screaming, but becomes disoriented as his whole body sort of folds in on itself, turning into a black hole Ouroboros-like thing that consumes itself before the black hole gets destroyed in a giant laser and then just turns into nothingness. So does this imply then that Leech Maximo is dead, or did he just presumably go back into the void that he said the 13 Primes cast him into millennia ago? I don't know, but this is the last time we see Leech Maximo, and I doubt the Terrans will have to deal with him anytime soon. My personal bet is I don't think Leech Maximo is dead. I just think he's going to be trapped in the dead space as I like to call it, maybe, or just Unspace, as it was called in Cyberverse. But other than that, though, Leech Maximo has been defeated, and Cybertron is now saved, as with Leech Maximo's defeat, all of the tendrils creating his web of worlds slowly retract and restore the planets that they were infecting back to their original selves, just as Cybertron seems to fully be revived as well. And with that, the Autobots successfully defeat Leech Maximo, and the day is saved, apparently. Now, a lot here happens after the Terrans and Autobots manage to defeat Leech Maximo, so bear with me on this. It starts off with, once Leech Maximo is defeated, the Ember Stone actually manages to basically be linked to the Enigma combination now that Leech Maximo is either dead or trapped back in the void again. So Hot Rod then walks up to the discarded Ember Stone and presents it to Robbie and Mo as a peace offering, offering them the ability to get their Cybersleeves back. And while for a moment Robbie considers taking the Emberstone back and therefore getting his Cybersleeve back in the process, he instead decides to pass on it and lets Hot Rod keep it, saying that someone else might need it in the future. And of course that serves as a nice little cap end to Robbie's story here, where he's finally come to peace with the fact that he doesn't need his cyber suit or his cyber sleeve to be a hero. Now, as we've seen here, he's literally was able to revive the Allspark and defeat Leech Maximo with Mo, all without using his cyber suit. He doesn't need these powers to be a hero. He just needs the support of his family. He needs to trust them and to show and basically trust that his family can help him, and then they can do anything even without a cyber suit. And I think, again, tracing this whole story of Robbie's back to addiction metaphors, this is Robbie just coming to terms with it, that he doesn't need his vice of prime power to get through life anymore. He can be a hero without a cyber sleeve, and I really like that, where he also apologizes to Mo for how he treated her throughout these past 2 episodes and asks if they're cool, which Mo graciously accepts Robbie's apology, and they make up as well. But then the real tearjerker here happens, is after Robbie and Mo are celebrating getting the Emberstone back and Hot Rod decides to become the new guardian of the Emberstone, we pan over to Optimus and Alita kneeling over Megatron's dead body, and from the absolute rage in Alan Tudyk's voice as Optimus when he's fighting Leech Maximo about how angry he is for him killing Megatron. Now we cut to Optimus being a lot more somber, where he thanks Megatron for giving his life to save him and the rest of the Terrans. It hurts so much seeing Optimus kneeling here over Megatron's body, where he laments the loss of his best friend at the cost of saving Cybertron. He looks so distraught by it. However, though, it seems to be that hope is going to come in and save the day when Twitch flies over to Optimus and Alita, where she says that it may not be too late to save Megatron, actually. So with that, she gets the idea to actually use the Allspark to revive Megatron the same way sort of revived Optimus and refueled all the other Autobots earlier on when Robbie fixed up the Allspark. That then leads to Optimus, Alita, and Twitch bringing Megatron's body down to the Allspark chamber alongside all the other Autobots, Bumblebee, Breakdown, and the rest of the Terrans, where they wait for the Allspark to revive him. At the same time, we also see it fixes Optimus by giving him his right arm back, very similarly again to TF1 when Orion Pax is reborn as Optimus, how the Matrix leadership sort of rebuilds Optimus's arm that was shot off by D16. It kind of does that same thing where it rebuilds Optimus's arm here, and we slowly see Megatron's chest being rebuilt as well, where the giant hole in it left by Leech Maximo's blaster is fixed as well. And then once it finishes, everyone waits patiently for Megatron to just wake up at any moment. But then the time passes. They all watch Megatron's body with bated breath, waiting for him to like gasp or wake up. But it never happens, and so Optimus is watching at first with like a really excited smile on his face when he sees Megatron's body healing himself, but as the time passes and Megatron doesn't wake up, his smile slowly drops, and then you can see the utter, like, depression and despair on Optimus's face, I should say, when he realizes that it didn't work, that even though the Allspark presumably fixed Megatron's body, he's still dead. It didn't fix his spark or restore it after it was destroyed by Leech Maximo shooting him. Then it cuts to Twitch after that, where we see Thrash behind her looks like solemnly at Megatron's body, realizing that at this point Megatron is dead. But Twitch can't bring herself to believe that yet. She stops, holds the hand up, almost as if she's like trying to tell Thrash, just give him some more time. Give him some time. He's gonna wake up any second now. I know he does. But that moment never comes. Twitch just waits a bit longer, and then at that point realizes that it didn't work. Megatron is just dead. And so with that, Twitch absolutely just breaks down crying. Then Thrash hugs her as everyone just looks over Megatron's body, and they all begin to mourn his death. It's such a powerful scene here, watching Twitch and Optimus both lose hope that Megatron is going to be revived here. That when at first they're so happy thinking that they're actually going to be able to cheat death with Megatron and that he'll be able to come back to life, to see that Megatron doesn't come back, that he's actually dead, it's such a punch in the gut. And very rarely have I been upset by a Transformer's death in fiction. The saddest times I can remember being when a Transformer died was probably Starscream's death in the IW comics, or even the end of Lost Light to some degree. Though more so I was upset with Starscream's death at the end of the Unicron comics. But this is the closest I've been. I'd argue Megatron's death in EarthSpark is the most upset I've been in regards to a Transformer death, in my opinion. An absolutely heartbreaking scene, and just Catherine Kavari and Alan Tudyk's performances as Optimus and Twitch in the scene make it even better, because Twitch just is so distraught by this. She's lost arguably her third father figure, an uncle, the one who always called her little bird, who always had faith in her when no one else did. And to see Twitch here, like, she was so sure that she was going to be able to save Megatron, because if you remember back in episode 1 when he saved her from Stardroid, he literally said to her that he knows that one day she'll be there to save him, like he was there for her. But he doesn't, because he's dead. And Twitch doesn't get to do that. She failed him, and that's what she feels like. She probably feels horrible that everything that Megatron did for her, she can't do that for him back. That she failed Megatron. She thought she was going to be able to bring him back, and she couldn't. And it really hurts to watch that. It only gets worse when after that there's this really sad but really powerful like fade in transition where we see all the Terrans and Autobots mourning over Megatron's dead body, and then we fade to black and then fade back in from the exact same camera angle, but this time in front of the space bridge on Praxis, where we see all the Autobots and Terrans gathered around Megatron's dead body in front of the space bridge, where Dot, of all characters, is delivering a eulogy to Megatron, where she mentions that Megatron had to make several difficult choices in his life, especially in regards to doing the right thing. However, sometimes doing the right thing comes at a terrible cost, and she explains that it was a big cost that Megatron paid to join their family by becoming an honorary Autobot and ending the war. And then she then says that kind of cost is also what caused him to leave their family by giving his life to help them all defeat Leech Maximo. And after that, Dot gives one last goodbye to Megatron, promising him that they'll bring his body back to Earth so it can be laid to rest in what he said to her was his true home. And after that, Robbie and Mo leave like these golden bouquets of Cybertronian remembrance flowers, very similar to the ones that were at the Allspark Memorial back in Warzone. And wow, it's a really, really sad scene. And I think I'm so happy that Benny Latham, of all characters, got to be the one to deliver this eulogy. Her performance here as Dot giving this eulogy to Megatron, it's so fitting, given as she was the one who convinced Megatron to become an Autobot all those years ago to end the war. She was the one who made Megatron see the error of his ways. She was his best friend, essentially, as a human. And I can only imagine the pain that was in Dot, having to watch her best friend die in that moment. And Benny Latham does that perfectly. This is absolutely one of her best performances as Dot throughout the entire show, and it makes me so happy as a creator that Benny Latham is actually subscribed to my YouTube channel. I just note, if you didn't see me post it last week, I mentioned that I had seen that Benny Latham actually subscribed to me on YouTube. So, Miss Latham, if you are watching this video, you should be so proud of the work that you did here as Dot, not only in this episode, but the entirety of EarthSpark. Thank you so much for your performance as Dot, Molto. You are easily one of the best human characters in the entire Transformers franchise, and Dot was only the best character, mostly in part to your performance as her. And this is just the capstone of your performance. You're as such a great final send-off to Dot, giving this eulogy to Megatron. it's so powerful, and it's such a sweet moment.
Standing up for what's right has a terrible cost. It's what brought Megatron into our family, and it's how he leaves us now. Goodbye, my friend. We will bring you home to rest in peace.
So after Dot finishes her eulogy and Robbie and Mo leave the golden flower bouquets next to Megatron's body, Mirage then interrupts the funeral, thanking all of them for helping him save Cybertron, while at the same time Jawbreaker makes a big announcement as well, where he announces to them that with Cybertron now safe, he really wants to go ahead and explore what Cybertron has to offer, really taken in by the beauty of the planet. So he tells them all that he wants to stay on Cybertron, though not permanently, just for a few weeks, potentially, or maybe even months, to explore it with Mirage and Hot Rod, who are also going to stay behind on Cybertron. At this point, Dot and Alex are really shocked by it and also don't want him to stay because they don't want their son to be alone on Cybertron. Though Dot stresses to Jawbreaker that if that's what he wants, they'll allow it, and as long as they find a way to come in contact with him every day. So Jawbreaker decides he's not coming back to Earth for a while and wants to stay on Cybertron. And I'll get more into this later, but I feel like the reasoning for this was probably because I genuinely think EarthSpark was going to make a Season 5 with how this episode ends, but probably Jawbreaker wasn't going to be a part of it. I think probably for reasons we may never know, Cyrus Arnold just couldn't play Jawbreaker anymore, so maybe this was EarthSpark's way of sort of quote-unquote killing off Jawbreaker by having him stay on Cybertron to quote-unquote explore the planet, and therefore while the other Moltos are back on Earth, so therefore they could continue EarthSpark by just having Jawbreaker stay on Earth. And it sucks because Jawbreaker was always my favorite Terran alongside Thrash, but knowing that this was truly the last episode of EarthSpark, that sort of makes it me feel better, that given that this is truly the last episode and not the end of just the season, it makes me feel better knowing that Jawbreaker's time here on EarthSpark ends with the whole show as well. But it also does feel very on brand with Jawbreaker as well, because Jawbreaker, throughout the entire span of EarthSpark, he's always wanted to explore Cybertron, learn more about its culture. His literal description in the EarthSpark series Bible was that he loves Cybertronian history and that he wanted to become a great hero like Optimus. So to have him here choose to stay on Cybertron with Mirage and Hot Rod, I think that's very fitting for his character. So with that, Hashtag asks him if they can all get one last group hug before they leave in the space bridge to take Megatron's body back to Earth and leave Jawbreaker up here alone with Hot Rod and Mirage, which Jawbreaker of course agrees to. So with that, all the Terrans and Moltos begin to hug Jawbreaker and make their way back to Cybertron.
What is this?
Hold up! Hold up here! Stop the presses! Stop the presses, everyone! EarthSpark tricked us! They actually pulled a fast one on us and actually kept Megatron alive. Oh my god. I was telling you, I had you go in there for a second, didn't I? But probably not, considering you've probably already seen this episode. But man, I was screaming with joy with my friend when we both watched this, seeing Megatron pop up in the background. I was so excited, thinking like, oh my god, they actually did bring Megatron back. It was just very, very delayed. And oh, I was so glad to see that Megatron finally revived, and everyone is so happy to see him. I can't wait to see that he's finally okay and gets to actually celebrate this victory against Leech Maximo with the rest of the Terrans. And
Optimus, follow me, and I will lay my vengeance upon you.
oh yeah, of course it wouldn't be that easy. And yeah, so that is the big secret, cliffhanger twist that EarthSpark ends with. So it turns out that yes, while Megatron was able to be revived by the Allspark, he still was hit with the Blades of Time by Leech Maximo right before he killed him. So because of that, unfortunately, Megatron is back to Tyrant Megatron. He has no memories of anything that happened throughout EarthSpark or the war, so he doesn't know about Dot, the Terrans, anything. All that history that he's had with all of them, gone in just an instant. So he wakes up immediately thinking that Optimus is an enemy once again, aiming his fusion cannon at him and all the other Autobots, where he threatens Optimus not to follow him or else he'll kill him and everyone else. And with that, Megatron runs away into the space bridge, presumably back to Earth. Thrash at this point mentions that this is probably because the Blades of Time knocked him back a few decades so that he's forgotten everything that's happened. And at this point, Optimus is even more distraught, where he feels like he lost Megatron all over again. And now, I've seen a lot of people say that this ruins EarthSpark Megatron's character. That after everything that's happened, after 4 seasons of Megatron and Optimus being best friends, the fact that they actually had peace in the war, that we're just back to Megatron being the bad guy again, it ruins EarthSpark, that it's a slap to the face. Yes, I'm not saying EarthSpark doesn't have its problems in seasons 2 and 4, but if you actually take the time to understand these problems and see what good was able to come out of these seasons despite the hiccups that the EarthSpark production team went through, you can actually appreciate this show for what it is. And it just bothers me so much that many people believe that EarthSpark ruins Megatron's character with a scene, because it doesn't. All this is a setup for a season 5 that we're never going to get. Because as Optimus watches Megatron disappear in a space bridge, lamenting the fact that he's lost Megatron all over again, Twitch tries to reassure Optimus, saying that, oh, don't worry, I'm going to be able to save Megatron, I just know it. And so, because that exactly ties into what Megatron said to Twitch back at the end of Hometown Heroes, where when he said, oh, I know one day you'll be there for me, I absolutely believe that this is what he meant. That originally, I believe EarthSpark probably got canceled after season 4 was still halfway through production, so they unfortunately will never get to see an official version of this, but I believe wholeheartedly that we were going to get a season 5 of EarthSpark, and that season would have been about all the Terrans and Autobots working together to try and get Megatron, and to a lesser extent Bumblebee, back to their old selves, get their memories back, while at the same time trying to stop Megatron from restarting the war on Earth. Yes, he may be the antagonist of a hypothetical season 5, but he wasn't going to stay the antagonist. I'm sure by the end of it, the Terrans and Autobots would have found a way to revert him and Bumblebee back to their old selves and regain all their memories, so all that time that they spent bonding with the Terrans and Moltos, it wouldn't have all been for naught. Literally, even as they get ready to go back in the space bridge to Earth to chase after Megatron, Dot even says, oh, it's not going to be easy getting Megatron back to his old self, but I know with this family can do anything. So even Dot agrees that they're going to be able to get Megatron back to his old self. No one has doubts that they're going to be able to, or just, oh, well, guess Megatron's a bad guy now, so we just got to fight him now until we defeat him. No, they're not here to defeat Megatron. They're going out to try and save Megatron. They want to turn him back into the redeemed figure that he is. Then the episode reaches its end. Hot Rod and Alita decide to stay on Cybertron as well to help Jawbreaker and Mirage fix up Cybertron. And so that leaves Optimus, Prowl, Wheeljack, Robbie, Mo, Twitch, Thrash, hashtag Nightshade, Alex, and even my beloved Breakdown and Bumblebee to go ahead and head back through a space bridge to Earth to go after Megatron and save him. And even Breakdown gets a cute little moment with Bumblebee here where as they're getting ready to go back to space bridge, Breakdown even says, oh, I'm gonna come too. I gotta help Bumblebee find a good proper alt mode after all. And then Bumblebee actually kind of teases Breakdown back, chastising him, saying not to judge a bot by his alt mode, and like, oh, I can't believe, it's so weird calling, or not judge a friend by their alt mode. And then Bumblebee's like, oh, that's kind of weird calling a Decepticon a friend. And then Breakdown kind of teases him back, saying, oh, hey, don't judge a friend by his badge either. And so at that point, Bumblebee is kind of like impressed by Breakdown's snarkiness, so you can actually see that Breakdown and Bumblebee, even though Bumblebee has no memories of their friendship or just anything that's happened in EarthSpark, you can tell that Bumblebee is still slowly starting to rebuild his friendship and maybe even romance with Breakdown. So we've dotted dies. Even though we didn't get an official confirmation or like a kiss or a hug or anything, we got Breakbee in some form. Breakbee survived EarthSpark, and that makes me very happy. So with that, Robbie and Mo ask Optimus if they can just do one last roll out with all the Moltos and Autobots, which Optimus agrees to. So with that, Robbie and Mo say that they're time to get ready to go on the next adventure to save Megatron. The EarthSpark main credit theme starts to play over this final scene as Robbie and Mo tell everyone to roll out, and they all start running straight towards the space bridge, giving one last little fun pose to the camera before they all dive in and head back to Earth. And with that, this episode, Season 4, and the entirety of EarthSpark comes into my opinion, a very satisfying close, where the journey continues as they presumably go off to try and save Megatron and bring him back to his old self. It's over. I can't believe it's really over. And so, that was my review of Transformers EarthSpark Season 4, Episode 2, Legacy of Hope. If I had to rate this episode, I would have to give it probably a 9 out of 10, an 8.5 to a 9 out of 10. This episode is certainly not without its faults. Thrash's animation error where he's seen leaving with Twitch's team from Leech Maximo's base, only to have him be thrown in jail alongside Dot and Alex is certainly a problem. The fact that Robbie and Mo's exosuits are never explained to why they're Decepticons, and then a few other like animation errors just kind of set it down. But other than that though, I think this is an absolutely wonderful ending to EarthSpark. Does it have its problems? Yeah, of course it does. Few shows rarely are perfect. And I think it says a lot that this is the only finale I've given for any season of EarthSpark that's not a 10 out of 10. I think it's also just because me trying to be realistic here. I'm trying to be fair and not be biased, because if I'm honest, I was a little bit biased towards some of the earlier reviews. I think I gave Witwiki and Judgment Day 10s out of 10s when they probably didn't deserve it. But overall, I'm still really happy with Legacy of Hope. Mirage was such a fun character. I love Troy Baker's portrayal of him. Jawbreaker getting his sledgehammer and learning more about Cybertron and finally making the ultimate decision to stay behind on Cybertron to learn more about his ancestry is really cool. Even though I'm sad though, if we were to get a season 5, we probably wouldn't have had Jawbreaker in it. Megatron, Optimus, Twitch, Thrash, these are arguably some of the best performances throughout the entire series. Rory McCann, Alan Tudyk, Catherine Kovari, Zeno Robinson, and even Benny Latham as Dot, Sidney Michaela as Robbie, and Xeon Broadnax as Mo all give throughout this entire franchise. They've all done so good as these characters. I never hated their performances for a second. And then even Nolan North as Leech Maximo did so good as Leech Maximo. It was a roller coaster, a very intense, fun roller coaster ride from start to finish. And while it had its bumps along the way, I'm still so grateful that I got to be here for 3 years watching this show and getting to review it for you all who love it just as much as I do. And so that's it. There's no more. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week for the next review, or I'll see you in a few months when the next season comes out. This is it. This is the final time I'm going to be reviewing EarthSpark. Of course, I mean, I've still got video essays on seasons 2 and 3, plus a season 4 video essay. I've got a lot more EarthSpark planned, but this is the final EarthSpark review for like the individual episodes. It's over. I'm not gonna get to do another one of these again, and I'm sorry, but it's a lot. It means the world to me that so many people have loved my EarthSpark reviews, and I'm so grateful for all the love and support you guys have given me throughout this whole time, seeing me where I didn't even start with covering Transformers on this channel. I was a guy covering Telltale games, and I decided to shift over to making Cyberverse reviews when that show was coming up. I took a little break because I was busy with college and work. I just couldn't do it at the time. And so I jumped over back to EarthSpark when it came out because I wanted to just cover a show from start to finish. I never expected to fall in love with it, this world, these characters like I have here. And just to make so many good friends and memories. I've had such wonderful experiences throughout the course of these past 3 years. I've gotten to meet Nightshade's voice actor at a TFCon. I got to my first ever TFCon. Meet so many new friends in the Transformers community. Everything here is... I owe so much to this show. Getting to... From when I first saw the very first episode of EarthSpark 3 years ago back in New York Comic Con 2022. Getting to interact with other fans of EarthSpark. Build out my career here on YouTube as the EarthSpark guy. It means the world to me, and I'm just sad that it's over. I'm really sad that I'm here now at the end of it all, and I don't get to do this anymore. I mean, of course, I got my big reviews, but I don't get to share my initial like straight reactions with you guys anymore. There's no more EarthSpark. It's over, but we got an ending. We actually got an ending, and while it definitely leaves a lot open for a potential season 5, I think overall though, it is a satisfying ending for EarthSpark, all things considered, and it leaves the door open for what could potentially happen with the future of the series, and I'm grateful for that opportunity. So at this point, instead of saying just thank you all for watching, I'll see you next time, I'll just say this. Thank you guys so much for watching my reviews of Transformers EarthSpark throughout the past 3 years. Whether you were here since day one with me covering Secret Legacy, or if you just joined over the past few months waiting for me to cover Season 4, it really means the most to me, guys. I'd like to give a shout out to a few other key people here that have helped me out a lot through this. I'd like to give thanks to Emperor Kumquat, Common and Cam, Paper Plane. All of you guys were instrumental in inspiring me to carve out my own corner of making reviews on Transformers. I do still appreciate everything you've done for me to help me carve out my own corner here in the EarthSpark community. I have to thank Crystal Creatives, who she was such a big help in talking about EarthSpark back in the Season 1 days, where she was a guest on my Season 1 video essay, and it was so great to have her to talk to about EarthSpark as well. I have to shout out to once again to who I reacted to with the final episodes here with Aseexor. They are one of my best friends as well. Their love for Megatron and Optimus in this show is second to none, and it means a lot to them to have them to rant to every time about EarthSpark as well. And I also love to give a shout out to my partner, who is a huge Transformers fan. I'm still trying to get them into EarthSpark. They're struggling to get into it because they're kind of a bit put off by the Terrans, but they've always been very supportive in my love of EarthSpark and this channel, and I've got to thank them a lot for everything they've done to support me throughout all this. It really means the world to me. And lastly, I also want to thank, of course, the cast and crew of EarthSpark, from first the cast: Sidney Michaela, Zeon Broadnax, Catherine Gavari, Zeno Robinson, Alan Tudyk, Roy McCann, Sissy Jones, Roger Craig Smith, Danny Pudi. Everyone else did fantastic on the show. The crew: Dale Malinowski, Ant Ward, Nicole Dubuck, Ian Bush, Michael Launder. You guys created my favorite show of Transformers ever. I hope you guys realize that. And certainly last but not least, I want to thank all you guys, my subscribers, just anyone who's ever watched a video on Transformers EarthSpark. It means the world to me that you guys love EarthSpark as much as I do, and maybe you don't love it as much as I do anymore. Maybe you're hating it. Maybe you're on the same hate train as a lot of other people are, but I'll at least appreciate that you've been supporting me at least at one point, and it means a lot. So thank you for that. So I don't want to keep talking. I don't want to stop talking because then this video is over and I don't want to say goodbye to EarthSpark, but I gotta say goodbye to it. This is just how it is. So, yeah. Thank you all so much for watching my review of Legacy of Hope and the entirety of Transformers EarthSpark. It's been a wild ride, but this doesn't mean I'm done with EarthSpark. Not at all. There's going to be a lot more EarthSpark videos coming in 2026 and beyond. 2027, for instance, will be the 5-year anniversary of EarthSpark, and I've got some big stuff planned. Be sure to keep an eye on this channel because I got a lot more EarthSpark stuff planned. But I hope you guys stick around for me for other Transformers stuff. I want to keep covering Transformers on this channel, see how the franchise evolves. And yeah, but also keep an eye out for other non-Transformer stuff related to it. I hope you guys stick around for other stuff other than Transformers, but if not, I totally understand. Just thank you guys again so much for all your support and watching all my Transformers EarthSpark reviews. It really means a lot to me. If you like this review, be sure to like, comment, and of course subscribe. Happy New Year, guys. This has been my final video of 2025. I love you guys so much. Have a good one, and I'll see you in 2026. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.